semi-finals in the FTX Crypto Cup will be decided today, and 2 players will head to the final in this major, which is also one of the strongest chess tournaments in history. Magnus Carlson, he is tied with Rajabov, while Wesley So, with the help from some Mosquitos, was able to win the first match against Nepo. But who will make it to the final? Welcome to the FTX Crypto Cup. We had Mosquitoes, we had must-wins, and we did have comebacks on the first day of semi-finals in the FTX Crypto Cup. It's all going to be decided which 2 out of these 4 players will head to the big final. And to take us through this final day of semi-finals, Women's Grandmaster Houska, Grandmaster David Howell, and, well, David, many fans are dreaming of a preview of the World Chess Championship match between Nepo and Magnus Carlsen in the final. What are the odds that this will happen?
The odds must be lower today than they were before yesterday's semi-finals started. Before yesterday, we thought Nepo Carlsen, surely it would be them. But Wesley So did take the lead, and Rajabov kept Carlsen at bay. Who knows? Still, any of those 4 could qualify.
Yeah, it was looking so good for Magnus with winning Game 3. Losing Game 4, I mean, is it all about revenge already from the start for him today?
I absolutely think that this is going to be his approach. You know, also looking back at previous tour events, it's not the first time that Magnus has been leading on day 1 and had definitely lost in the final round with some disastrous consequences. So it will be on Magnus's mind, and he will be thinking about this very, very hard.
Yeah.
He has to play hard.
Magnus Carlsen and Rajabov, they have played some very tense matches before, so it was all about taking the few chances that would arise, and both of the players did just that.
So far, no mistakes from either side, no big blunders, no even tiny inaccuracies for the opponent to take advantage of.
Magnus Carlsen and Rajabov locked horns on the first day of the FTX Crypto Cup semi-finals.
I think these last few moves, Rajabov is almost self-destructing. He wants to be solid, but he's taken that to the extreme. He's being too solid. He's just sitting, he's just tied himself up, all of his pieces unable to move. He's just waiting for the inevitable.
And there you go. There's the last nail in the coffin.
Rajabov just resigns.
Wow.
In Game 4, the Azerbaijani didn't give any ground to the world champion.
Why is Magnus allowing this? Why is this happening?
I think he's just underestimated the danger here with his bishop first.
Oh, look at Magnus. He hates this.
Magnus just resigns, though. He knows he's lost. Doesn't even try to defend it.
Yeah, look at Rajabov there. A big nod, and we have a smile from Rajabov. That is such, well, an accomplishment in a must-win situation. How frustrating is that final game?
Yeah, I blundered and he played well.
Yeah.
Thank you. See you tomorrow.
Well, oh.
I thought it was a joke.
Yep. All right, Magnus Carlsen. He's frustrated then.
Meanwhile, a Mosquito sabotaged Nepomniachtchi's chances against Wesley So.
What's your reaction after that loss?
I mean, it was some kind of shamanic ritual because, during the last game, I didn't care about the game at all. I was only wanted not to get, eaten down by mosquitoes. I had never had, more annoying playing conditions than these.
He took it with a smile, Nepomniachtchi, losing that final game. But wow, all of these mosquitoes, David, that must have been so annoying.
Yeah, and at the worst possible time in that 4th critical game. Chess players, we struggle to deal with the smallest disturbances, but clearly Nepomniachtchi, for him, that was incredibly distracting and hard to deal with.
Yeah, look at this. I mean, and we can even see them on the webcam. I mean, the webcams don't have the best quality. And they're just everywhere, bothering him all the time. He even had to shut the lights off to try to, and Wesley laughing at this, buzzing.
Yeah, yeah, a little bit annoying for Nepomniachtchi. It did seem like the fates aligned a little bit for Wesley So, because it's not often you get that kind of divine intervention.
Yeah. But
Nepomniachtchi will be trying to bite back today.
Oh, clever. But do you think, David, that without the Mosquitoes, could Nepo have won this first match?
I think he did have chances, especially in Game 3 yesterday. He was completely winning, but he did let that slip. And Game 4, when the Mosquitoes really started to attack, when they really started to gather, it was a drawn position, Nepomniachtchi letting it slip.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it just wasn't ideal for Nepomniachtchi. It did come at the worst possible moment.
And the big question, of course, Ivanka, can Nepomniachtchi fix this problem, or will the Mosquitoes bother him today as well?
Well, we do have some advance notice from Nepomniachtchi that he's been working hard on this mosquito problem, and he indeed tweeted that he does have the preparation he needs. There you go. An insect repellent. Hopefully it does the job, because it did look like there were some hardcore flies buzzing around. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. We'll see. Well, we'll certainly see on the show, right?
Yeah. And he's gonna have to make a comeback to take this to tiebreaks, David. So what do you expect from Nepo? He's gonna have white pieces in the first game. Yeah,
I think the first game or two, that will decide this match. First, though, he has to break Wesley So's defences. Nobody has managed that so far. Wesley So unbeaten already. I mean, this far, this deep into the tournament, that's, I think, unseen before. That's unheard of at this level in the strongest tournament ever. Wesley So not losing a game. Nepo needs to change that if he wants a chance.
All right, well, let's take a look at the results from the first semi-final matches yesterday. Wesley So, he did get that win together with the Mosquitoes in the final game, and that won him the first match. That means Jan Nepomniachtchi has to make a comeback today. He has to win today's match to take it to tiebreaks. Magnus Carlson and Timo Rajabov, after 2 draws, Magnus was able to win Game 3, but then Timo Rajabov, he made a comeback. He won Game 4, and that means that match is tied. So, Ivanka, what do you expect from this one today? Magnus versus Timo Rajabov. Do you think it's going to go to tiebreaks?
It's going to be close. Rajabov is a notoriously solid player. In fact, in the first 2 games of yesterday's match, neither player made head breakthrough. So, absolutely, I think it might go to tiebreaks. But we're going to see what Magnus is going to bring to the table, because I have a suspicion he is going to go a little bit hard. He found a winning strategy in Game 3. I think he's going to try more of the same.
But if this is a tie, the second match as well, David, then we will head to tiebreak. So what will happen?
So tiebreaks, if we do get them, they will be decided in blitz chess. Time will be slashed. It's going to be best of 2 blitz games if the scores are level. Only 5 minutes on the clock per player, gaining only 3 seconds after every move. If after those 2 blitz games the score is still 1-1, then it's down to Armageddon chess. White will have 5 minutes. Black having 1 minute less with 4 minutes, but White will have to win to progress to the final.
Yep. It's going to be a total of 4 games to decide the semi-finals today, and maybe we will head into those very exciting tiebreaks. We're going to start out with the first game between Jan Nepomniachtchi and Wesley So. We have to figure out if Nepo has fixed the Mosquito problem. And after this first game, we're going to challenge all of you in a Kahoot quiz. Now, Kahoot is an online destination for quizzes, for learning. And Askil, he challenged Magnus and David in the same Kahoot quiz that we will give to all of you. And, well, they did struggle a little bit. Take a look at this.
What's the name of the mate?
What? I have no idea.
Bongo mate. Sounds like a... I'm not going to say that.
What was right?
Balestramate.
Balestramate?
Yeah, as we said yesterday, Ivanka, you would have taken that. You know all the mates.
Yeah, I would have taken that one, but I did have a sneak preview of another video of David and Magnus, and there were some tough questions in there.
There are some tough questions.
Yeah, definitely a really, really nice quiz to get your head around.
Yeah. So we're going to show you the whole video after Game 1, and then we're also going to give all of you at home the same quiz, and that's coming up after Game 1. But we're not going to stop the normal quiz of the day. Of course, we have that as well today.
Yeah, we are asking for our quiz of the day, which player would you take with you to the moon? And you can only enter this competition via Twitter. So you can do that by tweeting your answer using the hashtag #ChessChamps. Now, this prize is just amazing, and it's being brought to you courtesy of Opera. And you can just look at it. It's just amazing. You have a chessable course, the Cowboy Repertoire 1B3. The reason I say cowboy is because people who play 1B3 tend to be known as cowboys. You also have a 1-year Play Magnus Plus membership, which gets you access to 3 Magnus applications. So that's the Trainer app, that's the Tactics Frenzy, and of course that is something else. Okay, and then we have 1-year Chess24 Premium membership.
Wow.
And wow, just so many things. So absolutely amazing. So you have Play Magnus. Plus, I'm really looking forward to, if I were there, like on the Play Magnus app.
Yeah.
All the time, because you have Tactics Frenzy, you have the Magnus Trainer app, and of course you have the Play Magnus himself.
Amazing quiz. Did we get the quiz?
Yes, we did get the quiz.
Sorry, I didn't pay attention.
Which player would you take with you to the moon?
There we have it. There we have it. Which
Maybe
player?
I didn't do it.
I don't know. Maybe I didn't pay attention, but there is the quiz, and that's the most important part.
Yeah.
Which player would you take to the moon? Hope you have some fun answers. But now, let's head back down to Earth and into the play zone. Take a look at the 4 players left in the tournament. 2 of them will head to the FTX Crypto Cup final. We do see Wesley So there, sitting at 10 a.m. in the morning in Minnesota. He's gonna play against Timo Rajabov. Sorry, not Timo Rajabov, but Jan Nepomniachtchi at 6 o'clock in Moscow. Actually, Timo Rajabov is also sitting in Moscow. We didn't see him having that Mosquito problem yesterday, but is it all about just shutting those windows for Nepomniachtchi now, David, and getting ready?
Yeah, it must be. Wesley So himself did tease Nepomniachtchi, saying, just shut those windows.
Yeah, he actually did.
And yeah, Nepo, he does live outside of the centre of Moscow, so that must be why they were swarming for Rajabov. Slightly different in the city centre. Yeah, both these players, though. Today, preparation on the chessboard as well. And so we do see their head-to-head scores there, with Wesley So in front. 5 wins to Nepomniachtchi's 2. Nepomniachtchi, he has to turn that round to stand a chance. There have also been a lot of draws. 15 draws between these two in rapid chess. That's not a good sign for Nepomniachtchi fans.
I heard a lot of talk about Jan Nepomniachtchi after winning the candidates that it's going to be a different World Chess Championship match for Magnus, because he can't rely on those tie breaks, because Jan Nepomniachtchi is maybe as good as Magnus, or almost as good, in rapid and blitz chess. So I was a little bit surprised to see those scores that Wesley is ahead, but are they quite equal in the rapid online format?
Yeah, they're pretty formidable opponents. I mean, I don't think those previous scores will matter too much. I mean, it's all going to be about who is playing in the best form. And at the minute, it does seem that Wesley is the much more experienced, and he is the one who is playing amazingly strong chess.
Now, with the white pieces in the first game, that must be very important for Jan Nepomniachtchi. What will we see him just go straight for a critical, dramatic game to win it?
Yes, that is his style. Since he was young, Nepomniachtchi, to just go for the maximum in every game. Ideally, get on the attack, play on the front foot. We did actually see him get his best chances with the black pieces yesterday, but that just shows his fighting mentality in all games. White or black, Nepomniachtchi, he will want to fight. There were no quick draws yesterday. There were draws, but they were all fighting draws. Very competitive play, and more of the same is needed from Nepomniachtchi. He just needs to take his chances, which he didn't do yesterday.
And he does have a sweater on today, maybe to protect his arms if the mosquitoes do show up. But it looks good right now on Jan Nepomniachtchi, a minute before the game starts. No waving with the arms. Hopefully, the mosquitoes are gone. The only player we are waiting for the first round to start is Magnus Carlson, who will face Timo Rajabov. And Jan Nepomniachtchi now with the white pieces. So, Jovanka, you mentioned, I mean, Wesley So pretty much unbeatable. But previously in the tour, when players have been able to beat him, what is it that they can do?
Well, it tends to be in those very sharp positions. You know, he tends to a little bit lose his way. I mean, you definitely have to maintain the pressure, and you can only do this by keeping all the pieces on the board and basically being Wesley So's perfect nemesis. And you can do that by just keeping the tension alive.
So that is what Jan Nepomniachtchi has to do. Is this a good way, David?
Yeah, we like it, don't we, Jovanka? The English opening, white there, pushing what we call the C-pawn early in the game. Normally we see King's Pawn openings, Queen's Pawn openings a lot throughout the tour. But with the English opening, it means Nepomniachtchi, he's trying to delve into less well-known territories. The English opening tends to lead to less simplifications, less trades early on in the game, more tension. As Jovanka said, that must be the recipe for success for Nepomniachtchi so far. So the English opening, how will Wesley So reply?
Howell?
How will? Oh, I'm so narcissistic, I'm even talking about my own name. How will he reply? He brings his knight out, very sensible, controlling some central squares. And Nepomniachtchi, he will have expected this. This is very flexible for white. You can play with both the knights there. He does bring out his knight, maybe supporting a later pawn push in the centre.
I mean, this doesn't look like the most normal opening.
No, it is quite well known. It's at top level, but it's very tense. And there's, as I mentioned, there's no way for black to immediately kill the game, which is the main thing. And this is the 4 knights variation. All the knights out at this very early stage. White there pushing a pawn, black's bishop developing, and white's knight jumping in. That isn't the most common move. Normally, white just defends that knight with his queen. So Nepomniachtchi may be coming up with the first mini surprise in this game. And Wesley So takes off his jacket. He knew he was slightly surprised by that last move. How will he react? That white knight in the centre, maybe eyeing up that black bishop on the left side of the board. Lots to consider for Wesley So.
Right, and the most popular move is actually to pick up the pawn in front of the king's pawn, and move it 1 square. That is the critical line. But Wesley's a very pragmatic player. Will he go for the main line? And he does.
Whoa. Nepomniachtchi has just undeveloped his knight. That pawn pushing forward, he just retreated his knight back to its start square.
Wow. Why?
It's the main idea, David.
The main move. But this is so rare, though, and it doesn't have a great reputation for white. As far as I know, normally white doesn't go for this. So Nepomniachtchi maybe not playing the best moves, but trying to provoke Wesley So into unknown territory.
So, well, Wesley is having a think, and it was quite okay. Well, we have a move. We have castles.
So black castling the king, white redeveloping that knight to a different route this time, using the edge of the board. That knight is it's not going to stay in the corner. It's not going to stay on that side.
Well, this move, this very strange move with the knight, that is new and never been played, but has, of course, been analysed.
Yeah.
Nearly everything has been analysed these days.
But the way you looked at me, Jovanka, when I was shocked at white retreating the knight, you were like, oh, yeah, it's seen, it's normal, but it's definitely not at the top level, very common, at least. I mean, it's very rare. And, yeah.
Well, I do have access to the database, so it is telling me.
Yeah, but still, I mean, relative to earlier ideas for white, which were far more popular with a far better reputation, this for white is supposed to... I mean, we see it on the bar, don't we? It's not recommended by the computer. White's piece development, white's bishops aren't moved out, white's king is still stuck in the centre, white's only playing with his knights right now. But Wesley's reacted quite quickly, bringing the black rook to the centre, now just pushing a pawn, creating an opening for black's light-squared bishop. Yeah, Nepomniachtchi, I would expect him to try and get castled as quickly as possible. Maybe move the white bishop, get that white king to safety on the right side of the board.
He keeps looking around, looking for those mosquitoes. I'm going to pay attention to Jan Nepomniachtchi's webcam right now. But it's looking good so far. The bar also went down with that last move by Wesley So.
Yeah, it's surprising that Wesley So played it quite quickly. It's an unorthodox move. OK, we do see a trade, a knight for a bishop there. White deciding, having spent 3 moves with his knight, deciding to trade it off for a bishop. And now Nepomniachtchi's playing copycat, also moving a pawn. Both sides are preparing to line up their bishops along the longest diagonal possible in chess. And here, white, the imbalance in the position is that white has a dark squared bishop for one of black's knights. So white is planning to put his dark squared bishop on its ideal square, on its ideal diagonal, and he's going to hope that black's knights don't cause any chaos in the meantime. Yeah. Long-term, white is doing well, but white's quite far behind in piece development.
Yeah, certainly. It looks that way. It looks like a very risky opening strategy, especially now that Wesley has actually accelerated play in the centre. And one thing that really comes to mind is what you said, that when you're facing the bishop pair, you need to accelerate the play. You need to basically do something so that your opponent doesn't just have the comfortable advantage. But it does seem like this has all been analysed and studied before by Nepomniachtchi. Look at the speed of his moves.
You never know with Nepomniachtchi. He's quick no matter what, but that quite possibly his ideas, his moves here have been backed up by a bit of research beforehand. I'm surprised, however, Wesley, going into this rare line, this variation where white is supposed to be taking too many liberties, Wesley hasn't slowed down. He hasn't paused. Normally, if your opponent does something you haven't seen before, you slow, you calm yourself, then you try and either punish it or you just think, OK, calmly, where do I put my pieces, all that. But Wesley's taking these critical decisions. For example, that pawn takes pawn decision wasn't necessarily forced, but he played it instantly almost. And right now, white's bishops are looking pretty good. They're very potent along those two diagonals, aiming towards the black king now. Yeah, Wesley, it feels like he needs to do something on this move or the next move, something a bit clever, a bit creative. OK, and that's what we see on the board before it's too late. He tries to exchange off one of white's bishops. That needed to be done. White's bishops were just too strong.
And yeah, definitely an interesting dilemma for Nepomniachtchi. How is he going to maximise the position? He can't preserve the bishop pair, so he needs something else. Otherwise, there is a big danger that he could be simply saddled with a backward queen's pawn.
So what do you expect, Jovanka? Maybe white will take those bishops off now. At least if white plays bishop takes bishop, you force the black knight to retreat to a bad square with a recapture. So you gain a bit of time worsening your opponent's piece with that trade.
Yeah, I definitely expect bishop takes bishop and just worsen the black knight.
There we go.
Yeah,
that
is on the board. And now, once again, the question falls to Nepomniachtchi. What is he going to do? And he just decides to castle. Interesting approach. And now it's Wesley's time to take a pause. And he doesn't pause for too long because the queen just develops herself. So Wesley's playing in a very, very natural way. You know, he's connecting the rooks. The next move will probably to stake out the centre and perhaps move one of his rooks, the one on the left, and move it towards the open line, the D line. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, interesting. And I think Nepomniachtchi now, he will have his first real pause of the game and come up with a plan. This is the end of the opening. Normally that's signified by both sides having castled. There have been a couple of trades as well. So this is the middle game. It's all about planning. There's no immediate tactics, no immediate fireworks. White can, for example, maybe think about trading his bishop for a knight, but he doesn't want to do that yet, that white bishop on a great diagonal. So if there aren't any checks, any captures or any ways to attack, to create threats, then you slow down. You think, OK, which pieces need to be improved? Which pawns can I push? Which pawns do I want to trade? Which lines do I want to open up? All these questions in Nepomniachtchi's mind. Personally, I would be very tempted now to try and challenge black's central pawn. It looks like that's black's strongest point in its position. But there's two ways to do that. White can challenge black's far advanced central pawn there with two different pawn pushes, one on the F line, one on the D line. White can push a pawn just one square there, and those would be maybe high on my list of candidate moves, at least.
Yeah, and whilst Nepomniachtchi is taking a pause just to find out what plan he's going to adapt, well, we do have a quiz of the day where we're asking which player would you take with you to the moon? And David, I'm dying to know your answer. Who would you take?
I know who I wouldn't take. That's... no, I'm not going to say. Okay. I don't want to get in trouble. Who would I take to the moon? Oh, that is hard. I would have to be a softie here and say, a good friend, Simon Williams, the ginger.
Oh, yes.
Oh, that's... and you, Kaya?
Well, I want to join that.
Yeah, that would be fun.
There's only room for two in the spaceship. Sorry, Kaya.
Yeah, and...
I'll take Jovanka then.
Yeah, we'll be our own girls shuttle.
It's going to be, yeah.
Yeah, and we do have a very committal move from Nepomniachtchi. He's pushed his F-pawn forward just to challenge the pawn in the centre. So, yeah, if you do want to enter our quiz of the day, then you can only do so via Twitter, and you have to use the following 3 hashtags. Hashtag chess champs, hashtag Opera and hashtag FTX Crypto Cup. So if you want to enter a competition, which is which player would you take with you to the moon, then you do have to tweet using those 3 hashtags, and you can win a huge prize. Wow, it's just amazing. A chessable course, 1B3. You also play Magnus Plus membership and also Chess24 premium membership. So many things available, and that's been all brought to you by courtesy of Opera, the web browser.
All the tools there to improve the chess game, learn about the opening, practice your tactics, everything. So yeah, valuable prize as well. That's worth a lot.
Yeah, it is certainly worth a lot. And we do have a move on the board. Black has moved the rook to the centre. So very calm move by Wesley. He doesn't resolve the tension there that's in the centre.
Yep. And right now, Black's rook that has just moved, it's eyeing up a pawn, but also making the white queen feel very uncomfortable. So I expect to see the white queen move, shift out the way. That doesn't happen. Nepomniachtchi actually trading a set of pawns in the centre. That's also quite consistent, but it does feel like that gives Black time to jump into the centre with his knight. Personally, I would have delayed that decision. I don't think that move needed to be rushed, essentially. I'm rushing my words, but Nepomniachtchi actually rushing his moves. He has allowed Black's knight to jump into the middle of the board, and I didn't really want to allow this. I would have preferred to improve the white queen first. Instead, Nepomniachtchi, he's happy to make these committal moves. As Ivanka mentioned, pushing pawns, kind of attacking the black knight right now, but that white pawn is pinned. The white pawn doesn't want to take that black knight yet because Black's rook will be able to capture white's queen. So Nepomniachtchi loosening up his position, it could backfire quite easily, I reckon, this one.
But, you know, I can also see a situation where the position is just going to explode into smithereens. And I can just see a situation where if Black isn't too careful, is perhaps focused solely on the centre, that the real action is actually going to involve the dark squared bishop and the white knight. The knight is going to go to the edge of the board and start putting pressure on that pawn that is standing in front of the king.
Yeah, so white's knight and bishop may be aiming to combine against the black king later on. Black's king doesn't have too many defenders around it right now, so that would be very logical. The white queen also may be able to develop herself to a very active square, eyeing up that black king position. And, yeah, I mean, there's certainly ideas behind Nepomniachtchi's play. He hasn't just kind of allowed and invited Black's knight into the middle of the board for no reason. He's aiming to maybe distract that black knight away from the defence of that black king. And with his pawn pushes, if he is able to start kicking back Black's knight, if the black knight on the edge of the board on that left side, if that's not able to enter the action, then for sure White might be able to build up an attack. So I mentioned maybe this would backfire. What Black has to hope, on the other hand, is that White's pawns, both of them in the centre of the board, those two pawns, they might become targets. Look at Black's rooks, look at Black's queen. They're all perfectly centralised. They will eye up some of White's pawns eventually. So right now it's a clash of strategies, of ideology, can't even talk. Clash of strategies, let's say, where White is being very provocative, aiming for an attack at some point soon. Wesley So strategically doing well, but he needs to find a way to attack White's weak pawns. It's not easy to say whose ideas will come first, whose ideas will arrive first and be more powerful, but that's why Wesley So is having a think. He doesn't want to allow an attack. He knows that will be where Nepomniachtchi will take his chances.
I mean, how do you neutralise this? OK, so we do have a move from Wesley. He's totally ignored the fact that his knight was attacked, but he's really saying it isn't because of the pin against the queen. He's just moved another knight into the game. But now, how is Nepomniachtchi going to do something with the initiative? So by initiative, it just means that Nepomniachtchi has momentum on his side and he is going to get ready for an attack. If he just sits still and does nothing, then those pawn weaknesses, they're just going to fizzle out and they're going to start to towel. And certainly in the endgame, it's going to be a big problem. So, I mean, what would Nepomniachtchi think about doing? Threatening checkmate?
Yeah, let's bring up the analysis board to show what's going through Nepomniachtchi's mind right now. As we mentioned, if White does nothing, then these pawns will simply become weaknesses. They're already being targeted by Black's pieces. And we should also, just to show on the board, White cannot move this pawn to capture the black knight right now because the queen would drop off behind it. So that pawn is pinned and paralysed, cannot move. Jovanka mentioned, there is a way to threaten checkmate in one move, and that is actually a dual-purpose move. You move your queen out of the eye line of Black's rook, you can bring her to this side of the board, and suddenly there's two threats. You threaten to capture this black pawn using the protection of this bishop, and this would actually end in checkmate if White can achieve that, if White can take that pawn with his queen next move. Also, because your queen no longer stands along this line, suddenly the black knight is attacked. So this would have to be dealt with, I think, in only one safe way. Black would have to defend against both of those dual threats. He would have to offer a trade of queens, attacking White's queen, and if there is this trade, then suddenly the black knights will be safe and White's pawns just become weak. That's why Nepomniachtchi didn't go for this very tempting move. Instead, he kept more tension on the board. He's bringing his rook up. He's getting ready to shift this rook across to try and attack Black's king, and the Black king side looking very weak, defenseless right now, but it's a very slow plan for White. And I do notice the evaluation bar going over to Wesley's side. That means that Black might have something now, and it must all be to do with these pawns. I do feel maybe Wesley can just shift his queen across, eye up this pawn now with his knight, and with the queen and rook, everything aimed against that pawn. Maybe Nepomniachtchi, he's overestimating his own attacking chances. White's attack is still going to take 3 or 4 moves before there's real threats on the board.
Yeah, no, that's a great move that you suggested there, because White has the initiative, White has the momentum, and one thing that we've seen, it's a common defensive idea, is just to swap off queens, because your king is not going to get checkmated if the queens are not on the board. But, OK, Wesley doesn't play that move. Instead, he pushes his pawn forward, and that smells to me like a little bit of an inaccuracy.
Yeah, that's purely a defensive move. That move is aimed against blunting White's bishop. White's bishop now slightly less potent than it was. It's just hitting against a very well-fortified pawn, but it is slow. As you mentioned, an inaccurate move, maybe. Wesley perhaps just seeing ghosts, perhaps seeing, oh, there's threats coming against the Black king. You have to deal with it in advance. But now White has a free move, and White maybe can just move that queen. I think White's queen needs to get out of the firing line before too long. Maybe White can just shift the queen across one square. I do notice Black's king on an open diagonal now along the light squares.
I'm in favour of this move, 100%, you know, because now the question to Black is, what are you going to do with your knight? Where are you going to move it? And still there are 3 pieces, like, lurking around, looking at the Black king. And there you can see Wesley attacked the rook moves, and still there is some pressure, because moves that potentially Nepomniachtchi could consider is pushing a pawn forward, introducing the rook that's not working on the left, moving it towards the centre. So many nice ways to build the position up.
Yeah, so you can move this rook towards the centre. I'm not sure where, but maybe to this line.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, but I think more urgently, you just want to open up this rook's line against the Black king. So that means getting rid of this knight, and you can easily do that next move. For example, if Black just plays a slow move, you can easily do that by pushing your pawn forward and kicking away this Black knight. Suddenly, the White rook has a straight... I mean, it's going to make a beeline for the Black king. It is that Black king feeling really uncomfortable. That's why Wesley So tries to initiate trades as quickly as possible. He brings his knight back. But this feels provocative. This feels very scary for Black. White will not go for this trade, I can guarantee. Nepomniachtchi, he needs to win. He'll bring his knight to the edge of the board, aiming to use the rook against the king, also aiming to use the knight and bishop against this square. And there we go. Nepomniachtchi plays it. Suddenly, there are real threats. White's knight already threatening to capture this pawn due to some pins, and the Black king under heavy fire already.
Yeah, the king tries to run away. I bet you that Black king wishes it were on the moon, away from Earth. And whilst we're waiting for Nepomniachtchi to come up with an idea of how to continue the attack, I do have to read out to you some answers. OK, well, with the White rook now slides across, very instrumental idea. Bringing every piece you have, inviting them to the party. I do like it. Now there's a big threat of knight takes pawn in the position, and Wesley needs to take a timeout to defend the pawn that is standing next to the queen.
Yeah, it's all about that F6 pawn.
Yeah,
look at White's pieces, the White knight, the White bishop, the White rook that has just moved. All of them are eyeing up one square, and that's F6. So Keep an eye out on that pawn, guys. It's
It's weak.
It's weak. It's a target.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be demolished away. And yeah, I do have to share with you some answers to our competition where we're asking which player would you take with you to the moon? And Don Jose says that they would take Rainn Wilson to the moon because Steve Carell will need an assistant to the moon manager in season 2 of Space Force.
Ooh.
And M. Redemus says that they would definitely take Hikaru. He has so many fans on Twitch that if we get stuck there, I'm sure they will come to rescue us. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
And if you want to enter our competition, then you should tweet your answer using 3 hashtags, #ChessChamps, #Opera, and #FTX Crypto Cup. And you can see there that is one huge prize up for grabs. Chessable course, Play Magnus Plus membership, and Chess24 Premium. Oh my God, amazing. Okay, but we do see a move from Wesley where he has been forced to take a defensive approach. He has been forced to develop the pawn that is situated on a square that we call f6.
Yeah, now finally the threats have dried up, at least temporarily, from White's side. There's no immediate breakthrough. Black has everything defended for now on that king side, on the right side of the board. Black's queen, knight and rook all doing a defensive job. And White still has an issue. White does have 2 very vulnerable pawns in the middle of the board there. Black's knight on the left, it is threatening to maybe capture a pawn. So you need to either defend it or step that pawn forward. Maybe it's time for Nepomniachtchi just to say, OK, you've defended against all my threats for now. I'm going to slowly advance my 2 white central pawns, use those as a battering ram to explode open the centre of the position. If the position does open up, it will only favour one side, and that is the side with the bishop. Bishops are great on open lines. If you can push those 2 white central pawns forward, both of them, then suddenly, and keep pushing them as far as possible, then suddenly White's bishop will gain in power. It's not an easy decision here. White has a lot of choice. Nepomniachtchi has to deal with a threat against one of his central pawns, though.
Yeah, no, I like what you're suggesting about using those 2 central pawns as a battering ram. I mean, one thing that you should always try and think about is when you have a bishop and it's standing, and you can see it's standing looking at a black pawn, you need to lengthen the diagonal, you need to maximize the power, and you can do that by just advancing pawns and breaking open the position. I mean,
the bishop's on the same diagonal as the king as well.
I mean, so many people forget that, you know, we open lines for the rooks. They forget to do the same for diagonals. Somehow the brain doesn't compute the times.
Yeah, I mean, if White can explode open the position, Black's king standing on the same diagonal as White's bishop. There's only 2 pawns in the way. It's often going to be possible to sacrifice a piece for those 2 pawns just to start checking the Black king, start getting that bishop to join the attack. Nepomniachtchi, he's looking for a way. That's why he's spending a bit of time here, spending 2.5 minutes on this move. He's looking for a direct attack. If that doesn't exist, it's time to just slow down, change the pace, take a pawn move. I think you do have that luxury with White. Black's pieces, most of them are already doing a defensive job. So what will Nepomniachtchi come up with? Sport for choice here.
Yeah, so which pawn move would you consider here?
One of the 2 central pawns, I'm not sure which. Both of them look pretty good. Personally, I think the most obvious move, the most natural to me, would not be to push the pawn that blocks the central pawn that blocks the White's bishop's diagonal. I would want to push the king's pawn here, the pawn on the E line for White. But that does also leave some holes, potentially. So maybe it makes sense to push the other one first and save that one for later.
Well, the Bitcoin rate is not looking great, like these pawns. We started out with $100,000 worth of Bitcoins in the prize fund. It's down to $74,000 now. It's been sinking quite a lot from yesterday.
Yeah, it had a great couple of days, Bitcoin, right? On, well, 2 days ago. Yesterday was OK as well, but yeah, it did drop a bit.
It's got 2 more days.
2 more days. Maybe it will continue rising like the bar has been rising for Nepomniachtchi in this game so far.
Yeah. Is it all because of that? You talked about that bishop.
Yes.
Is that what the computer is liking the most about the White situation?
It's liking the space that White has. I mean, if you look at the potential of the White rook there, that's on the right, it's just eyeing up a line against the Black king. Also, the White knight is entrenched in the Black side of the position. And if you look at the black knights, that aren't especially well coordinated. Now, the big issue for Nepomniachtchi is what is he going to do about his central pawns? Because one pawn is under fire immediately. I mean, should he let it go and just focus all his energy on the right side, or should he take some measures to defend against that? I mean, there's so many things here that both sides can consider. And I also am looking at that knight that is in white side of the board there on the left, and I'm thinking, well, it's a little bit loose. It's only defended by a queen. Perhaps I could try and look for some tricks.
Against that knight, how would you look for tricks there?
I haven't found my way there.
You could maybe use the white bishop to pin that knight.
I was thinking that was on my radar as well, but I was thinking how it would. I don't particularly want to touch my 2 pawns there, because every time I move a pawn up, I give up squares, and I'm a little bit reluctant to give up the squares. And I have to say, I was really impressed with how Magnus conducted his attacks in the knockout stages. He's been so impressive, and he's been doing it just using pieces. So I've been taking some inspiration from that, and I've been trying to find ways in this particular position to try to open lines, but with the pieces as opposed to pawns.
Yeah, Magnus did a great video series on Chessable about attacking without sacrificing, and usually that would be attacking with pieces rather than pawns. But yeah, I do know most chess players, it's just classical wisdom as well. You want to use your pawns first as foot soldiers, you throw them forward, sacrifice them, and then the pieces come in behind. The pieces of the cavalry, the infantry, and those do the real damage. But yeah, right now, white is attacking with pieces. But if that's not working, if it's possible to make any headway, then maybe you need some pawns as well. That's why, personally, I'd advocate pushing some central pawns. Nepomniachtchi, though, 6 minutes on this move. He does eventually push a central pawn. That looks good to me. I mean, if white can next move push his other central pawn, then I think white's going to have a fantastic position. But right now, will Wesley So be able to block those pawns on dark squares? But temporarily, white's bishop is unhappy about that move. If you talk to the white bishop, he's thinking, oh, you've blocked me in. What are you doing? But Nepomniachtchi is banking on the fact that later on, white's pawns will continue their advance, push to light squares, again opening up the dark squared bishop. So I think it's a good move from Nepomniachtchi. Personally, I quite like it. I don't see what Wesley So's plan is. The stakes are higher for Wesley So right now. If things go wrong for black, he's simply going to get his king attacked. The black king might be in big, big trouble. But if they go wrong for white, maybe you just drop a pawn. Maybe you just got blockaded on some squares. Yeah, it just feels like black has more to lose right now than white does.
Now, this black knight you were talking about, why couldn't he just move his white pawn one step forward and threaten that knight?
Yeah, that's actually, let's bring up the analysis board to show that. So on the last move in this position, white did push his central pawn forward. If he'd pushed the other pawn, then suddenly the black knight would be able to capture due to...
But now, I mean, could he do it now?
Yeah, he's definitely thinking about doing it now. I mean, this was the part of the plan. The pawn was attacked, so that's why he's moved it. And
white wants to push this forward and kick away this black knight on the next move. Maybe he'll do that anyway. Kaya, I reckon he might play your move.
Yay!
He might push this pawn forward, kick away the black knight, because why not? You just gain a bit of time, force a piece to retreat. That knight's in your half, you want to kick it back, very natural. And I think if you do kick it back, the black knight has to be careful where it goes. If it goes to the wrong square, for example, in the middle of the board, then suddenly white's other pawn steps forward, white keeps gaining time, keeps advancing, and due to the threat against the knight, you just get given moves for free, essentially, as white. So I think this move is the most logical right now.
I think the one thing I've definitely learned from listening to your guys' commentary is...
He plays your move, Kaya.
Yes, and it's timing. How incredibly important timing and playing the good moves at the right time is in chess.
Yeah, exactly. And the former world champion Bobby Fischer actually said that chess is timing. When it comes to especially conducting attack, it's all about getting there when the king is vulnerable or the pieces are slightly uncoordinated. Here, we do really love your move. And David, did you expect that move? Because
well, Nepomniachtchi didn't.
No, I mean, because the thing is, though, with that move, we kind of ruled it out automatically because white wants to go forward with their pawns. The move that is crying out to be played and needs to be calculated immediately is what happens if white were to attack the knight. with another pawn
Yeah.
in the centre.
We showed it on the analysis board a few moments ago. I think that's the most natural move. There are consequences. Nepomniachtchi goes for it. What has Wesley So come up with here in reply? Because to me, it looks like disaster for black, almost. You can't afford to continue retreating with your knight. Those white pawns are going to keep stepping forward. So Wesley, he has to, for example, he has to enter a really sharp line here, I think, if he wants to survive as black. He just has to make maybe use of the fact that the queens are staring at each other, they're on the same line. Maybe black can use his other knight and capture a pawn, or just move it out of the way, just create a pin along the central line, along the E line. But yeah, it's looking scary for Wesley So. I'm just surprised that he played that last move so quickly. I mean, it wasn't natural. There were other safer squares for the black knight. And now, to start thinking now after white's most natural move, Wesley So shaking his head as well, leaning back in his chair. Maybe he thinks he's blundered. Personally, I think he's really playing with fire. And it's like what you said earlier, Kai, it's all about timing. I think even the viewers, definitely the viewers at home, definitely us in the studio, we see the ideas, we can get there on general grounds, just following general principles, but it's just putting all those ideas together in the right order, and maybe Wesley So hasn't done that with his last move.
Yeah, I know I've been very impressed with how Nepomniachtchi has been playing. Definitely the right approach to put Wesley So under pressure. And putting Wesley So under pressure and demonstrating his attacking skills, I do have to show you this lovely tweet from Bad Bishop. And you can see, well, Nepomniachtchi is in SWAT mode. And, yeah, the picture will come up shortly. And here we do have some moves on the board. Wow, the position has just gone insane. I mean, what's happening here? Why has Wesley So just given a pawn? What is the idea?
So Wesley won a pawn a couple of moves ago, but in order to win that pawn, he had to give a pawn. And we did see black being able to trade his knight for white's bishop. There was a pin along this E line, the queens looking at each other, so white didn't have time to capture black's knight in the middle of the board. But white has had the opportunity to do something else, and that is to jump forward with his rook, defended by the white knight on the side of the board, and now the black queen in big danger. The black queen is attacked. I think maybe there's no time to even defend her. If you move her away, you have to stay on the E line, then there will be consequences. White will be able to continue threatening things. I think maybe the key move for black right now is to push his pawn forward and counterattack against the white queen. That's not obvious. Wesley has choice here. He has maybe 3 or 4 moves with the black queen. He can also push the black pawn in the middle, attacking white's queen. And I think that's probably the best way to stay alive. To me, it looks super scary. Black's king now, its formation, the pawn formation, the shelter in front of it has been ruined. White's rook threatening so many things.
7th heaven.
7th, yes, Kaya, exactly. Rook's on the 7th rank, so many targets.
Yeah.
That's where they're hitting all the pawns, hitting queens, hitting everything.
Yeah, and so we're expecting Wesley just to throw in a little bit of a decoy move and just push his pawn forward. It seems to definitely make the most sense. This is the kind of position that you can get lost in. Do we have time to take a deep dive?
Yeah, let's bring up the analysis board because, to me at least, it seems like there's one move that's much stronger than all the others for black. Black's queen obviously attacked by the white rook. You cannot capture it because the white rook defended by white's knight. If you just move your queen, if you keep the queen on this E line, still preventing white's pawn from moving due to this pin, then suddenly white has a killer move here. White would be able to bring his queen to the side of the board, and suddenly there's 2 threats. OK, he does find the best move. I was going to say black's knight attacked, and if the knight moves, suddenly white will be able to sacrifice and give checkmate with his queen. The white queen now trapping the black king. So this is why Wesley So played a different move. He sidestepped this trap, and he found that he could counterattack against the white queen. There's 3 ways to guard against the attack. Either you move the queen, you take the attacking piece, or you counterattack. And Wesley So found this move, now attacking the white queen. If white's queen takes this pawn, then black has time to give check. This is the key. This is why black sacrificed his pawn, and suddenly the game might turn around. White's king coming under some fire. So, yeah, great move there from Wesley So, a necessary move to attack the white queen.
Yeah, Wesley's skirting on the edge of defeat, right? OK, so what should white do? Take the pawn, move the queen?
I think actually taking that pawn would lose for white, because black's queen would give check, white's king has to move, and then the black knight will be able to jump, attacking the white queen in 2 different ways. Yeah. So right now, I think you have to shift the white queen. Maybe you have to stop black's check along that diagonal. Maybe you just have to move the queen across 1 square to what we call the F2 square. stopping black giving check with his queen. This is not easy. I mean, even though it looks like Nepomniachtchi actually played a fantastic game, everything's been so logical. Wesley So playing some strange moves, somehow black surviving, and still it could go either way.
Well, this is the beauty of chess. You know, you can play perfectly, but your opponent does also play great chess as well. I mean, great defensive move by Wesley, and Nepomniachtchi does move his queen to prevent the check. Okay, so now again, this is a completely wild position, and the first move that I would be calculating is what happens if black were just to get greedy and take the pawn.
So taking white's central pawn.
Yeah.
Yep, so black can capture white's central pawn with his queen. That's definitely possible. It's probably the most natural move in the position because there are two threats. Black's queen is still attacked, and now black's knight is under attack as well. So I don't see any other way, actually, to deal with both of those ideas. Wesley, okay, just putting his jacket back on. Maybe it's cold in Minnesota right now. But, yeah, black has to deal with both those threats. Why not just capture white's pawn in the middle of the board?
And, yeah, I've been told that now the picture is ready that I wanted to show you. It's a great picture of Nepomniachtchi. Look, there he is in SWAT mode. And you were telling us that you know Shimar more. I've never... Not familiar with him, yeah.
Looking very sharp, yeah.
It was a great picture.
Ready for any Mosquito attack that might come.
That'll be scary for Magnus Carlson if he turns up like that to the World Championship match in November. OK, so black did find the best move. We did briefly see the Stockfish suggestions below the board. Black finding the only move to survive there, taking a pawn. And now white just shifting his rook across, attacking the black queen again. So that's very logical. White currently a pawn down. And also, if you do the count of the pawns, black has a very scary pawn, a very far advanced pawn in the middle of the board. So Nepomniachtchi now, the stakes have increased for him this time. White needs to pretty much deliver checkmate or win something. Otherwise, that black pawn will decide the game. If the queens disappear, if the rooks disappear, black, with his extra advanced pawn, is just going to win. So Nepomniachtchi, that's why he's shifted his rook across, attacking the black queen, gaining more time and bringing another piece into the attack.
What do you think right now? What will this game end up with?
It's crazy, Kai.
Yeah.
I mean, look at both the sides' kings. I mean, both of them are in trouble. I mean, especially black. You know, there's a white rook and knight sniffing around. That's not safe. But then you have the risk element. There's an element of timing here because look at black's central pawn. It is 2 squares away from queening. If white doesn't manage to do anything, then OK, that pawn is going to decide matters. So here it's going to be win or lose for either side.
Computer says 0.0, but I think that's the least likely result right now, a draw. And also, look at black's queen. It's actually trapped. Black's queen has no safe square to move to. Black's queen just cannot move right now. Wesley So has 2 moves to try and save her, to save black's queen. He can advance his central pawn, giving it up, attacking the white rook, pretending to make a new queen. Maybe that pawn will just disappear, though. White can snap that central pawn off if it advances. Black's other move, maybe the best move, is to interpose the attack on his queen, block that threat with his knight. And that is not obvious. Giving up the black knight in order to try and distract white's rook.
We have to show that line. It's beautiful.
Yeah, let's keep an eye on the... OK,
he plays it. OK, so...
So he's given up this knight. And the whole reason he's done this is because now if white takes this knight, which he might well do, then suddenly black will just give up his queen. He'll sacrifice a whole queen. Black now, a queen down, but about to make a new one. He'll push this pawn forward, supported by the black rook at the top of the board. And now black is the one about to make a new queen. We could see a crazy variation here, for example, where white sacrifices his rook to try and open up the black king, maybe some checks, and who knows whether the black king will survive. The black king has to run away towards the... I mean, this is going to be chaos. White with an extra queen, but with only 1 move before black makes a new one. White has to deliver checkmate here, or else it's game over. And this is what Wesley So has calculated. He's gambling on this move after rook takes knight, giving up the black queen.
And both players, less than 2 minutes. OK, we have it.
This has happened, and this is the current position on the board. Black, a queen down, and wow. I mean, this is so rare to see a whole queen down, but white has 1 move. It's just impossible to stop that pawn. You can give up your queen for the pawn, but then actually white will be down on material, a rook for a knight. So you cannot consider giving up your queen for this pawn.
But why would Nepomniachtchi agree to this? Obviously, he saw this, right?
Yeah, he saw this, but the problem is there's nothing else to do, I think. And the move, I'm not sure whether it's the only move, but the move that comes to my mind is to give up your rook for this pawn and just draw out the black king, lure it out into the open. But then I think white would be actually the one fighting for the draw. There's no way to actually checkmate that black king The problem is if you take a timeout for white, then you're just losing. So Nepomniachtchi, he has to find that move. He has to give up his rook here for the black pawn.
Yeah, brilliant defence by Wesley. I think that taking the pawn is the only move. I mean, I don't see anything else that can be done.
He does it.
And he's played it. OK, so now the big hope is that the white queen will just carry on checking the black king. The black king will be unable to find a safe home. So I would be checking immediately.
Yeah, Nepomniachtchi, though, he did shake his head there.
He doesn't.
Well, he does do a check.
Yeah, he does give a check, yeah. Actually, this one makes sense as well, giving up the white knight, because if that knight is captured by the black rook, white's queen would then come up and give check. Not only do you check, but you threaten both of the rooks at the same time. You win one of the black rooks, and you will be able to stop the black pawn in time. So right now, Wesley, he shouldn't capture that knight. Taking that knight would be a huge blunder from Wesley So. He should just move the black king away from check. I would personally move it next to the black knight, next to the white knight, just to stop any more checks from the knight. You don't want to move to a square where you continue getting checked by the knight. You have to force the queen to give you check. And I think that would save black, but he's still got to be careful. This one, despite the fact the computer still says 0.0, it could go either way. One slip from either side will lose the game immediately.
Yeah, I think that's actually the only move on the board, just to step the king up diagonally so that it's adjacent to the white knight. I don't see anything else. If the king steps backward, when the queen will just come forward. OK, and it's been on the board, and now the checks begin. Because what can Nepomniachtchi hope for? I mean, what's going to happen next is simply black is going to play king takes knight. I don't know why...
He doesn't have to play king takes knight. He can step back with the black king.
But then, OK, he does. And, but now I anticipate queen check. And if Wesley wants to win at some stage, then I think he has to capture the knight.
Yeah, so as soon as black's king captures the knight, white's queen will just continue giving the black king checks. The problem is, for the black king, there's no shelter. There's no pawns to hide behind. You can't even hide behind your own rooks from the checks, because the rooks are at the top of the board. You can't... There's no way behind them. There's no way to use the rooks to block. The black king stepping forward, the white queen will drop back, giving check. Nepomniachtchi shaking his head. He thinks he had a big advantage, but this is very... I mean, this is fantastic play by both sides. Nepomniachtchi trying to make the draw now by continuing giving checks. Will Wesley play for the win? I don't think there's any risk for black. You might as well just take that knight. And, OK, Wesley goes the other way with his king.
Yeah, but I'm anticipating that Nepomniachtchi will simply move his queen and check diagonally, and it's on the board. And the whole point is that the black rook is not allowed to interpose the check. And I think he has to take it.
Yeah.
He has to take it, you know, might as well, because all the other moves have been shown to be equal. Unless the king wants to run again.
Just look at the bar in the other game. I just want to update you on that. Team Rajabov, Magnus Carlson. The bar has, within the last few seconds, shot up for Magnus Carlson. It's looking really good for the world champion in that game. Hopefully we're going to make it to the ending of that one. If these two finish, probably with a win for either of them, or probably a draw.
This is probably a draw now, because they both played incredible resourceful chess, and what's important now is that
Wesley's trying to win, though.
He is trying to win, but the queen will come and deliver check.
And Wesley shaking his head. Magnus has won in the meantime.
Wow.
With black against Rajabov. OK, white's queen giving check, as you predicted, Ivanka. White's knight finally dropping from the board. And now we're going to see white's queen continue giving checks. There's going to be no way to escape these checks for the black king. The only way to escape the checks was to run to the left, but then the black pawn would drop. So the checks are continuing. Black's king just has nowhere to hide. White has to give checks before black can make a new queen. So both sides pretty much forced to accept this draw. And Wesley going through the motions, prolonging the game, but any moment now we will see a result. Checks forever, for eternity. For infinity.
And beyond.
And beyond, yeah. And Black King running away from the checks. But we do see a draw. Black's king unable to hide.
All right, it's a draw in the first game between Jan Nepomniachtchi and Wesley So. We know Wesley So won the first match yesterday. So Nepomniachtchi, he has now 3 games to find a win to take this to tie breaks. And, well, do you think he's going to be able to, Ivanka?
I mean, Wesley has shown what a magnificent opponent he is. You know, that game was just crazy, and I really thought that Nepomniachtchi was playing absolute perfect model attacking game. But Wesley, he's shown he's got what it takes.
Yeah. He really is showing he got what it takes. And, he's going to have the white pieces in the next one. Wesley, do you think he's going to be very safe and go for the sort of draws here?
Yes, I don't think he's going to try too hard. In fact, yesterday he said it very clearly in the interview. He wants the draw. He wants to do what is necessary. And we saw in his match against Maxime Vachier-Lagrave there he played very, very quickly and agreed a draw almost immediately with the white pieces.
All right. Well, this one, it was a draw, but quite well at the same time, actually. The first game between Magnus Carlson and Timo Rajabov ended with a win for Magnus Carlsen. Now, we didn't make it to the ending of that one, but David, I know it's going to be hard for you. You haven't really followed the game, but could you give us an analysis of what happened?
Yeah, and I just want to show the end of that game because we reached this position. Rajabov has white, Magnus has black. And at the moment, the white king is in check. White's king attacked. And actually, with best play, Rajabov should be able to hold the draw with white, despite the fact that black has a very scary, far advanced pawn on this side of the board. But Rajabov, this is the moment he went wrong. He did step to the wrong way with his king. He should have just been calm and retreated his king to the centre. His king would have been nice and safe on this square. And actually, it's very hard for black to do anything with this pawn. And 3 versus 2 on the other side, white would be doing OK. Instead, white advanced his king, getting brave with the white king. We do say activate your king in endgames, but this backfired for Rajabov. Suddenly, the knight was pinned. Magnus stepping back with the knight. Very clever move here, forcing white to defend it with his king. And after the black pawn pushed forward, the white king stepping out of the pin, we saw Magnus come up with a really nice sequence to finish off the game. He dropped his knight back, giving check, also protecting the black rook. When the king sidestepped, he gave another check. And when white's king stepped away from this check, suddenly the knight came to the edge of the board. And suddenly, knight jumping into this square, giving check to the white king and forking the white rook in the corner. This double threat persuaded Rajabov to resign. There's one final detail here. This move actually unstoppable because if white tries to defend it with his own knight, Magnus could now sacrifice his rook in the middle of the board. Suddenly, after king takes rook, the knight fork would win the game. Magnus coming up with that really precise sequence and taking the lead in his match.
Impressive stuff by Magnus Carlsen in the first game. In the second semi-final match, we're going to follow game 2 between these two, and Rajabov, he has to find a win in one of the 3 last games to take this to tiebreaks. So we still have 3 games to go of rapid chess in the semi-finals, and if one or both of the matches are tied after that, we're going to head into those very exciting tie breaks. And of course, we have another episode in the Simon series on chess engines coming up for you. It's been very depressive the last couple of days with engines, computers just taking over the world. But actually today, we're going to show you the video of the last time a chess player beat a strong chess engine. Yay! But now it's going to be all about quizzing. And, Chess24 has partnered up with Kahoot. Now, this is an online quiz destination learning platform. There's already a ton of quizzes out on the Chess24 platform on Kahoot. Now, David, he wanted to test David, and Oskil wanted to test David and Magnus in a chess Kahoot quiz. So first, we're going to take a look at how these two did on this kind of hard chess quiz. Take a look.
So me and Magnus are going to try a chess quiz on Kahoot, and we're challenging you viewers at home as well. How can you do against us?
1, 2, 3.
What's the name of this, mate?
Oh, Jesus.
Oh. It's gonna be hard to count.
Yeah,
this is just gonna be a guess.
What did you guess? Did you get it right?
Yeah.
Oh.
So the next match will be the 50th.
Wow.
Oh, Jesus.
Third place. Oh, Max.
Gotcha.
Oh, they actually played a third place match and then Maxim won that one? Oh. Yeah, I didn't really pay attention after I got knockouts.
What's the name of the mate?
What? I have no idea.
Bongo mate. Sounds like a...
What was right?
Balestramate.
Balestramate? That's got to be right now. Yeah. What did you guess? 1?
No, less.
Less? Oh, come on. Can't be that little. 2010. Pretty sure. Pretty sure, yeah, because I think Rajabov was second and I was third. Yeah, this one I know.
I think I know as well.
Nice.
Someone's trolling me.
It was a close one, David, but Magnus won this one, not by many points, I think, but it was hard, this quiz.
It was really hard, but unfortunately he's too good at everything. It's just not fair. Some of the questions, he was even there in 2010.
That was difficult.
Yeah, tricky
and
stuff.
I didn't know about it's going to be the 50th match of the World Championship.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Well, hopefully all of you at home paid a little bit of attention because we're challenging you in this same quiz right now. So, how to do it? You go into kahoot.it and then you write in this pin 07147058, and then you can choose a nickname. And then just go ahead, take the quiz, and of course we're gonna follow who goes to the top in this quiz. It's going to be exciting to follow.
Definitely. I can't wait to see how everyone does.
Yeah.
But they've got a little bit of a head start because they know some answers now.
Yeah, they do know some answers.
It's about speed as well, though. That's
right. Yeah.
Speed and accuracy, just like chess.
Exactly. All right. Exciting stuff. So go into kahoot.it, put in this pin and your nickname or your regular name, and go ahead, take the quiz. Good luck, everyone. And of course, this is not the only quiz that we're challenging the viewers in today.
No, we have, of course, our quiz of the day. And this time we're asking, which player would you take with you to the moon? Now, this quiz is just awesome because it has an amazing prize that has been brought to us by courtesy of the internet browser Opera, and just take a look at the prize. Actually, I'm getting so excited about the prizes that I'm not even reading the quiz answers, which we really liked. So I'll get there first. So I'll read some answers. And Charles Tuzo says that they take Wesley and Magnus for the Moon Championship. That would be good. You know, I like that. Chess in space. And Jack Mulder says that they'd like to take Chess24 commentator Tanya Sajdev to the moon. Ooh. Beautiful, intelligent, funny, and she could teach me to become good at chess, provided the pieces don't float away. That is a little bit of a risk when you're playing chess on the moon. And if you'd like to enter our quiz of the day, then you have to tweet your answer using the hashtag ChessChamps, hashtag Opera and hashtag FTX Crypto Cup. And the prize, oh my God, is just amazing. It's like a bumper prize and take a look at this, chessable course of a lifetime repertoire, 1B3. And people who play 1B3, they call themselves cowboys. So it's your chance to join the Cowboy Club. And then you have 1 year Play Magnus Plus membership. And that gets you perhaps the Magnus Trainer app, the Play Magnus app, and if that's not enough, the Tactics Frenzy map app, and then finally 1 year Chess24 premium membership. I mean, this is just too good to be true.
It is very good. So join in on the quiz. And it is all about quizzes. Kahoot quiz, quiz of the day. And I have another quiz coming up for you now because I too wanted to test David and Magnus and Askild in more of a random quiz. Also some geography questions. And yeah, take a look at this.
Quiz, quiz, quiz.
The first one. 3 capitals in the world that start on the letter O.
Okay.
Can only think of one. Ooh, wait, how many do you ask for?
3.
Oh, Jesus. I've only got 2, don't I?
Alright. So both Magnus and Askild are correct. We were looking for Oslo, Ottawa, and the last one I can do is Ouagadougou.
Ouagadougou?
Where's that?
Burkina Faso.
Oh yeah, of course, of course. Yeah.
The year 2020 was a leap year, and it felt like it was an endless year. But how many of the months in 2020 had 28 days?
Oh fuck no!
Fuck.
No, I
I thought it was 0, but that's apparently not the correct answer.
That's what you wrote first.
Yeah.
If you take 2 apples from a pile of 7 apples, how many apples do you have?
9.
Okay.
Askild?
If you take 2 apples from a pile of 7 apples.
I'm so dumb.
Nope. What is red and smells like white paint?
I have no idea. Yeah, I mean, I thought about red paint, but that would be too dumb.
He's just bitter that he didn't get it right.
No, but I mean,
What's your
that was.
answer?
I thought nail polish. It can be. But I mean, red paint is just too dumb. That's too dumb. Because it can smell very differently from white paint. Yes, it can. It depends on the chemical.
You can tell how many walls Magnus has painted.
Find one. 5 countries that end with the letter L.
This is like, are you smarter than a 5th grader?
So Magnus is finished.
I got 5.
1 point. Let's see.
Okay, so it's Nepal, Senegal, Brazil, Israel, and Portugal.
That's correct. We have a winner. So David, what is the capital of Burkina Faso? Right?
Yeah,
Ouagadougou. No, I can't do it.
We'll call up Magnus later and ask him.
Yeah. He was impressive in especially the geography. We know he loves geography. But good job on the random questions, David.
Thank you.
Yes.
I know how your mind works, Kaya.
Exactly. Well, that was fun. All of our quizzes today, but of course, it's mostly about the semi-finals. 1 game has finished. Well, both of the games in the first round of the second match. Wow, has finished. So Nepo and Wesley So eventually played a draw. Wesley So he won the match yesterday. So Nepo he has to win one of the games today to take this to tie breaks. Now, Rajabov and Carlsen, they drew the first match. Magnus winning the first game today. So if he is now able to play draws for the rest or even win a few games, he's going to be the winner of this semi-final. Team Rajabov, he has to make a comeback. He has to find a win. Will this be the game, Jovanka? With the black pieces?
He has to try, right? I mean, he was successful in game 4 of the last match, so why not? He definitely will be giving absolutely everything he's got, and the moves coming thick and fast. And
we have seen the Spanish opening, Magnus opening with his king's pawn earlier, and we see the Berlin defense, the Berlin reply to the Spanish. Okay, we're heading down one of the main lines. White temporarily sacrificing a pawn. He has won that pawn back, however. We see a trade in the centre of the board, Magnus pushing a pawn. This type of opening has the reputation of having a tiny advantage for White because you are the first to occupy the centre with pawns. White's rook there attacked, White dropping back with the rook. But White's minuscule advantage can be neutralised with accurate play. Rajabov now offering the trade of rooks. If those rooks disappear as well, it's likely that Rajabov will be able to solidify his position. Here, we've seen Magnus in the past use a couple of different moves. He has been known to develop his bishop. He has been known to trade the rooks. Just maybe push a pawn as well. He brings his bishop out this time. This is all well-known stuff. How well is Rajabov versed in these types of positions, and how comfortable does Rajabov feel in a position where he's 1 point down in today's match? He needs to win at some point, and here with black, minimal winning chances.
Yeah.
It looks like Magnus not taking too many risks with this opening choice.
In fact, we've seen Magnus use this exact opening with the white pieces to get a draw against Wesley So. I mean, the pawn structure is so symmetrical. I think bad choice.
By who?
Yeah, by Rajabov. He shouldn't be allowing this type of stuff.
Okay, but maybe he's banking everything on the white pieces in the next game. Rajabov thinking with black. It's
yeah,
hard
but
to...
still, the psychological game, you're still giving your opponent a free half point.
It's worked for him in the past, though. Rajabov often happy to take draws with white even, quick draws, just to play with the black pieces. And, OK, this time, this is all standard stuff. White's knight developing there. If you look at white's pieces, especially the bishops, the knight, the queen, those are far more active than the black counterparts. So white has a tiny, tiny lead in terms of time, in terms of piece development. But, OK, we have seen... Is that right? A draw in the other game.
Yeah, that's correct. An extremely fast draw in the second game with Wesley So and Jan Nepomniachtchi. Wesley with the white pieces. We know draws are all he needs to win this semi-final. Nepomniachtchi banking in on the white games, I guess.
I think it's a little bit of a risky scenario. I mean, especially when I consider how Wesley So did this against Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. And Maxime actually, when the time came, it was just too much pressure for him to handle and he couldn't manage to score the important points. So I think in this match, if you're on the verge of being knocked out, every single game should matter. And at least you need to start playing the psychological game. You need to say, yes, we're going to have a draw, but we're going to work hard for it.
Yeah, Nepomniachtchi, maybe he did miss an opportunity to at least try and tire out Wesley So. And yesterday, actually, Nepomniachtchi got his best chances with the black pieces. So why agree a quick draw with the black pieces?
Yeah.
Wesley there using an idea he's played 10 times, I think, in this tour, just to force a draw early on with the white pieces. Wesley not trying to worry about the fans. He wants the result. He wants to get through to the final by any means necessary. So quick draw in that one. Will we see the same in this game? So far, looking very balanced. If you look at the pawns, they're almost symmetrical. White stepping forward with his queen right now. I have mentioned this several times in the past. I don't want to harp on, but I did use this exact setup with white to draw against AlphaZero, the AI program, a couple of years ago. So that's how solid it is for white. It's just impossible to break down almost. And meanwhile, white just centralizing his rook.
Yeah. And I think it's all to do with the symmetrical pawn structure. It's all to do with the fact that you look at the pieces, they both have dark square bishops, a set of knights, really not so much in the position.
Magnus smiling, meanwhile.
Yeah.
He knows that this is leading to a draw with best play. All black needs to do is bring the black rook at some point to challenge the open line, and that will just neutralise all the pressure.
Well, we'll see whether Rajabov's gamble is going to pay off in the next game, if this game does end in a quick draw. But we do have a quiz of the day where we're asking which player would you take with you to the moon? And, yeah, my answer suddenly disappeared. I had some lovely answers on my spreadsheet, and suddenly they're gone. So I'm going to have to wait with this. But, OK, it's a great prize of a huge prize. You can see it there. 1 B3 Chessable course, Magnus Plus Premium membership, and then you have Chess24 Premium membership. Now, to enter, you have to tweet your answer using the hashtag ChessChamps, hashtag Opera, and hashtag FTX Crypto Cup. And yeah, I'll read some answers the more next time that they appear on my screen.
OK, so the Black Knight retreating, White stepping forward with his bishop. This has all been seen before. This is well-known stuff. White just trying to neutralise Black's position, trying to hoover off all the pieces from the board. And Ivanka, earlier you asked me, you asked Kaya who we would take to the moon, but you never mentioned yourself. Who would you take to the moon?
I believe in love, so I have to take my one and only.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
But, you know, if I could take more, then it's like party on.
Yeah,
As many as possible. We're all going to have a big party on the moon. That's what I would like, actually.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah.
Who needs bouncy castles when you can just bounce with the gravity?
Yeah.
The lack of gravity, I should say. OK, so meanwhile, Rajabov thinking the move I would expect to say. I was about to say bishop takes bishop. Very logical. White's knight jumping into the position. But this is a minimal gain for White. I think just the fact that White has slightly more active pieces doesn't become a factor because there's no real targets. All Black needs to do is activate the Black Queen, bring that Black Rook to the middle of the board, and there's only one open line. Once Black is able to challenge that line with his Rook, he will force a Rook trade, most likely. And that's the only imbalance in this position right now, the fact that White controls the open line, that E line. And once Black's pieces begin to occupy it, that's pretty much going to solve his problems. Rajabov spending a little bit of time here, just planning to be accurate. It's not because he's trying to find anything too crazy to spice up this game, because those options just don't exist right now. There's no way for Black to liven this one up. He's just looking down, maybe because he isn't so familiar with this exact position, but even if you're not familiar with it, you just take a time out. You think, OK, let's be logical. Let's maybe move the Black Queen, create a path for the Black Rook to centralise itself, and that should be enough to hold the balance.
Mm-hmm. And just say you find yourself in this situation, you're playing with the Black pieces, you're in a must-win scenario. Can it be done?
Possibly. Maybe there were ways earlier to keep a few more pieces on the board, keep a bit more tension in the position. And, OK, the Black Queen does move, as expected. Yeah, I think this type of position, personally, if I were maybe playing a lower-rated player, I would just keep playing and playing. Even if the queens came off, even if the rooks came off, I would play that knight endgame out until the end. Because there are still enough pawns to later on maybe trade a set of pawns, open things up, create some small imbalance. But I guess against someone like Magnus Carlson, who's an endgame expert, how are you ever going to grind out an endgame victory against him?
And I think we're going to see some more trades happening. The rooks are going to leave the board, and I just think that the more pieces that are traded off, the harder the task is. But it was interesting, you specifically mentioned a knight endgame. I didn't expect you to say that.
How would you want to keep the tension and try and
I just thought as many pieces as possible, but I guess...
Yeah, the problem is if Black didn't go for this trade of rooks, then Black's rook is simply inferior to White's. So even if you have winning chances, you don't want that to come at the detriment of your own pieces, your own chances. And, OK, the rooks have departed. The White Queen occupies the open line. Black's knight, though, does jump to the centre. Look at this. It's completely symmetrical, apart from the queen position. Everything is in balance. It's as if Black's been playing copycat the whole game. It's as if you right-click, copy, paste, and do it for Black's pieces. And, this is no chances here for either side. No imbalances, no weaknesses in either side's camp.
Well, Magnus will be happy about that. Rajabov, he needs a win. If this ends with a draw, as David says it probably will, then he needs to find a win in one of those two final games in the semi-finals.
Yes, and Rajabov there, just bringing the king towards the centre. That is just hinting at the fact that Black wants to challenge White's queen on the open line, that E line. If Black is able to challenge the queen, if the queens just disappear from the board, if they get traded as well, then... I did mention knight endgames, there's always going to be chances, but I just don't see any way that either side will really... I don't think either side will want to take the risk of opening up some pawns, throwing those pawns forward, because that will just give your opponent hope, if anything. So Magnus just having a ponder whether he can keep the queens on. Maybe he'll feel slightly ambitious. Maybe he can bring the White Queen to the centre of the board. But yeah, I don't see any way, long term at least, over the next 5-6 moves to keep those White Queens, keep the queens alive.
All right. Just a reminder, we have a Kahoot quiz challenge for all of you. We tested David and Magnus in a chess Kahoot quiz, and we're challenging all of you in that same quiz. So go into kahoot.it, and then you just press in this pin 07147058 and your nickname, and then you can join the Kahoot quiz challenge.
Yeah, and look at this exact position. It's completely symmetrical. Literally nothing is out of balance in this position. It's completely identical, White setup to Black setup. Nothing out of place. This is a work of art. Just go and screenshot this one.
Yeah.
But the thing is, White starts the initial position at the beginning of every game. White starts first, and now it's completely symmetrical. It's White's move as well. So this has just been a demonstration of serenity, just keeping everything with its natural order. And right now, Rajabov looking away. He knows that if the queens disappear, it's just, well, virtual shake of hands. A peace treaty will be offered. And I think Magnus, the reason he's thinking is he doesn't want to break this symmetry. What useful move do you come up with? And yes, he can trade queens. Yes, he can maybe push some pawns. I don't see any active creative ideas. There we go. He just steps forward with a pawn.
Yeah, and that pawn just controls one square that the knight potentially could move to. I mean, it's just such a level position. You don't
Black does the same. Copycat chess. Copycat chess. He's just mimicking all of Magnus's moves.
Yeah, so I agree with you, David. We are going to see, and the kings are going to repeat in the same formation. Now, this would be really great, but there is the unfortunate scenario that Rajabov is playing a point down, so I don't think this is necessarily ideal for him. But whilst we're waiting for Magnus just to find another move where he can perhaps manoeuvre into a draw, we do have a quiz of the day, and I do have some answers. And Angelica Simbula says that they would go with Magnus, but being afraid that if he loses a match, he can just shut down the call with ground control. See you tomorrow. Good thing that there is no danger if I'm the only opponent.
Yeah, I would be scared of that too.
And yeah, OK, so some trades happening on the board. Now the queens are off, and anything to write home about? There's going to see some more pawns leave the board as well. It's like the vacuum cleaner has come on the board and it's just removing those pieces.
Yeah, slightly surprised that Magnus did this. He could have just sat still and gone for the draw. He is pushing forward with the white pawns on that right flank, but there's no targets there. There's nothing to be done. And actually, if anything, White has given Black a square. The Black Knight can jump forward sooner or later and give White's king check. That would be an outpost. One outpost on its own won't do much, but it's slightly surprising to see Magnus kind of slightly weaken his own position in order to keep the game alive. It feels like if you're going to take risks, if you're going to press forward, you could have chosen a different opening, you could have kept more pieces on earlier, but OK, maybe Magnus will try and imbalance things by gaining a bit of space. That seems to be his strategy, pushing forward there with the pawn. White now has a spatial advantage. That means his pawns are further forward. And if any pawn race happens later on, White on the right side will be ahead in that race. Now the White king moves towards the other side, centralizes itself. Maybe we'll see Magnus Carlson start pushing on the left flank. This is typical Magnus, just teasing the opponent, keeping all the risk out of the game, and then now just massaging a small advantage, saying to Rajabov, I know it's going to be a draw, 99% sure, but I'm going to make you work for it still. And there we go, Rajabov pushing a pawn on that left flank.
Yeah.
Suddenly, the last few moves, I did slightly criticise Magnus pushing on the right side, but suddenly it does look like Rajabov doesn't really know what to do. There's no real plan for Black, just moving back and forth.
Well, definitely it's Magnus who's made the improvements. I mean, especially there on the right side. I mean, I do remember that my father teaching me when I was young that the triangle, and if you see Black on the right has a triangle, that is the worst type of pawn structure. It's even worse if the middle pawn in the triangle is actually back. But OK, the position is relatively still pretty level. I mean, I don't see there being any scenario where Black can go wrong.
Yeah, most likely. As I mentioned, 99% chance this is going to be a draw, but Magnus has been the one making progress. Black just waiting. Black now with his last pawn push, stopping White from gaining space on that left side.
This move I don't like. I'm not a big fan of this move, just on principle. I mean, he might be able to get away with it here because the position is so level, but in general, I would avoid that pawn structure completely because it just doesn't do anything. I mean, there's no possibility of advancing pawns.
Yeah. Black had, before that last move, Black had two triangles, one on the left side, one on the right. OK, Black there pushing a pawn. Note how that wasn't really a pawn sacrifice for Black. If White had captured that Black H-pawn, that corner pawn, then White's other pawn on the F-line would have dropped off. So that wasn't a sacrifice for Black, just an offer of a trade. Now Black's gained a bit of space on that right side.
But I mean, what I can see happening is that White's simply going to move the knight to cover the important square in the centre that the Black Knight can jump into, and then move the king up sideways,
Yeah,
upwards, forwards, doesn't really matter what it's going to do.
Yeah, the last thing you want to do with white is allow an invasion of the opponent's knight. So right now we're expecting Magnus to just bring the white knight to what we call the F2 square, cover any entry points in the white half, in the white territory. He brings it to a different square. That's slightly provocative, to say the least. Black's knight now does have the opportunity to jump into the middle of the board. Rajabov widening his lines there. Maybe he's slightly surprised that Magnus is giving him a little bit of hope. Black's knight does jump forward, and there was a threat. Black's knight threatening to come down and fork white's king and a pawn. OK, we're just seeing the players repeat the position now, and there we go, a draw.
It is a draw, the second game between Magnus Carlson and Timur Rajabov in the second game of the second match in the semi-final. So they tied the first match, and Magnus, he won the first game of today, so he is in the lead. And after 2 games, with 2 games to go, Timur Rajabov, he has to find a win in one of those 2 games to take this to tie breaks. And the situation between Jan Nepomniachtchi and Wesley So is that Wesley, he won the first game. They have now played 2 draws so far today, and we're going to head into the third game where Jan Nepomniachtchi will have the white pieces. And, well, yeah, here are the results so far in the second semi-final matches. So Jan Nepomniachtchi, he has 2 games to go, and he has to find a win in one of these 2 games to take this to tie breaks. Timur Rajabov, he has to find a win in one of those 2 last games against Magnus Carlson to take that one to tie breaks. And I'm just looking forward to this game with Jan Nepomniachtchi and Wesley So, because Nepo, he has the white pieces. It definitely seems by his play that's when he wants to get his win.
And that's when he wants to put Wesley So under pressure. And he was almost there in the first game that they played against each other. But I had to say, Wesley So defended impeccably. I mean, absolutely remarkable from him. But what can we say? When we have that immovable force meets the unstoppable object, then I've completely massacred that quote. But you get a massive amount of energy against something that's not moving, well, we're going to get a lot of fireworks.
Yes. What do you expect, David? Nepo with white pieces.
Yeah, this feels like his last chance, actually, because clearly, with that quick draw in the last game with Black, Nepomniachtchi clearly showed he's not confident beating Wesley So on demand with the black pieces. He's gambling everything on this game, and no more English opening that we saw earlier today. We see a queen's pawn opening from Nepomniachtchi. He must have an idea in mind. What will Wesley do in reply? Will we see another queen's gambit? And Wesley arriving at the board, ready to play, about to make a move. The most common move he plays here is to develop his black knight. So, OK, Nepomniachtchi has an idea in mind. He's switched it up. We have seen him open with the king's pawn, the queen's pawn. He's played the c pawn as well, the English opening. Nepomniachtchi really showing how versatile he is in the opening, how wide his opening repertoire is. And Wesley So does bring his knight out.
And, of course, we have to mention, if Wesley So wins this game, then it will be over. Then he will be in the final. So, of course, that can happen as well.
Yeah, and we do see White's knight developing there. White threatening to expand even more in the centre. White having a bit of a clamp right now. And we do see Wesley, instead of going for something known as the Nimzo Indian, which he's played throughout his career, going for the Queen's Gambit again. This is one of the most popular, most topical openings in world chess right now. It was even before the Netflix show. And, OK, we see a trade of pawns in the centre of the board. Black capturing with the knight. So this semi-Tarash.
Semi-Tarash, yeah.
Defense.
I didn't expect that one, actually. I was expecting a full-on... OK, but the move's coming thick and fast.
Yep, so White there with that rook move. That might look a bit mysterious. Yes, it does put the rook on a semi-open line, but ignoring White's piece development on the other side of the board. But that white rook move was designed against Black's main idea of giving some bishop checks later on. Black is the first to castle. White will continue development here, most likely. White can bring a bishop out. OK, instead, he pushes his corner pawn, pushing Harry the H-pawn. This is known. I think I've seen Magnus Carlson do something similar in something like this in a very similar position, but it is also very risky. White ignoring the development of the white bishops and just pushing forward. That pawn is going to continue pushing, going to try and weaken up, loosen up the black king position. If you look at this position and just do a summary, White has the centre. White occupies more space with his pawns. but black is super solid right now. Black is slightly ahead in development because he has castled. So black needs to challenge white's center. If white is given 3 or 4 moves to just consolidate, to continue building space, if there are no trades, then white is doing fantastically. So Wesley, that is the dilemma number 1. How does he activate the black pieces? How does he maybe offer some trades to release the tension and to minimize the effect of white's pawn center?
Wesley's reaction is not that typical. I mean, this pawn move pushing Harry the H-pawn actually has great pedigree. Geary's played it, Aronian's played it, many other grandmasters, so it definitely is recognized to be very, very dangerous. But this move, not so much. Only 2 games in my database. In fact, it was played Levon Aronian against, I don't know his first name, Bosiocic.
Marin Bosiocic.
Yes, that's it, 2019. And that one was a win for Levon Aronian with the white pieces.
Yeah, so this opening, despite the fact that the evaluation bar is over on black side, this opening has had a lot of success with white. It has attracted some very strong players. There we see a trade of pawns in the centre. Nepomniachtchi just snacking up, just getting a bit more fuel, a bit more energy. He recaptures that pawn. White's pawns in the centre of the board are beautiful right now, but black finally starting to try and chip away at white's pawn centre. Black's knight coming out, attacking one of white's central pawns. That needs to be dealt with. That needs to be defended against. Nepomniachtchi, how will he do that? Will he defend it with a bishop?
I expect it's the most natural move on the board, isn't it? Just to pick up the bishop, move it 2 squares, defend the pawn that is under attack.
Yeah, he could also push one of his central pawns. He could push either of his central pawns if he wants to. Lots of choice here.
Definitely lots of choice. I mean, I would be a lot more tempted just to pick up the bishop. And the reason I would say that is because you keep the tension on the board. Because it's not necessarily the best idea to play so directly, because your opponent will be ready for direct action and will be taking the most precautions necessary. Instead, if you maintain the tension, the opponent will have to be thinking all the time, you know, what happens if they advance the pawn? And it's just a matter of taste, but also a very practical approach.
Yes, I agree. In an ideal world, Nepomniachtchi, he would want to stay as flexible as possible with your pawn centre. You don't want to commit yet. You want to keep your opponent guessing and keep them worrying about what you'll do there. But he is a very ambitious player. He is in a must-win situation as well. So it's very tempting to be ambitious, to be very direct and just push one of those white central pawns forward. So Nepomniachtchi, just while he takes a sip of tea, while he takes his time out, yeah, I think he is just contemplating those options. Solid, defend your centre, develop pieces, or do you just show your opponent your intentions? Do you go on the front foot immediately? It does feel like opening up the centre actually with one of white's pawns does feel a bit premature because white's king is in the middle. Instead, he steps back his bishop. Now the white queen defends one of the central pawns, but he has lost time with that bishop. You don't like it, Jovanka. I saw the surprise on your face there.
Not my move at all. I mean, I was thinking it was much more natural to pick up the dark square bishop and just move it to support the pawn. I mean, wasting time. This is a really energetic position. Look at the pawn structure. It's like nearly open, and timing counts here. Every move has to have a purpose. So I'm just looking at what is the purpose of moving the light squared bishop to that square.
For white?
Yeah, for white.
I mean, it's just purely defensive to open up the queen defending the central pawn. But now we see Nepomniachtchi's idea. He lifts his rook up the board. That rook is going to step across one square to the left. And this is actually his strategy 2 games ago, earlier today. White lining up his rook with the opponent's king. It's clear Nepomniachtchi, he's in the mood for blood. He wants to go for the opponent's king no matter what. He doesn't really feel comfortable or doesn't feel that his chances of beating Wesley in an endgame or in maybe a slower position, those chances aren't very high, so he's going straight for the attack. That's very provocative, that white rook lift. I think a few years ago they would have said, this is just not chess, this is too ambitious, breaking all the opening rules. White has moved the same bishop twice, White has ignored castling, White never going to castle now, White breaking all the rules. But this is modern chess, and if you can attack, that tends to be a good psychological weapon in rapid chess.
And also, sometimes it's a very good idea to play in an unorthodox way. I mean, look at the way that he's attacking. You know, it's so rare to immediately go up with your rook, do a rover rook where it just threatens to sacrifice itself or even just to engage in an attack. I mean, this is so unusual. I don't see it being common at all. And what I'm thinking is that it will just force Wesley to think. It will burn, he will start to use psychological things, just thinking, my opponent can't play like that. What is he thinking about? I'm simply going to move my king. But there you can see a tweet from Anna Horvath, our tour director, who says that the person he's going to be taking is GMET. It's a good choice there.
That's a funny picture.
Yeah, and of course we do have a quiz of the day where we are asking everyone, which player would you take with you to the moon? And I do also have to read you this very nice tweet from Melody Garcia, who says that she would definitely bring her chess-playing husband. We will play chess in the most romantic setting, floating on the moon. And as always, if I win, he will wash the dishes. If he loses, he will wash the dishes. That's a good thing. And yeah, you can look at there. That is a massive prize up for grab. Chessable course. Play Magnus Plus membership, and then you also have 1 year's Chess24 premium membership. Just amazing. But you do have to tweet your answer using 3 hashtags: Chess Champs, Opera, and FTX Crypto Cup. And we have a move on the board, and Nepo confusing the life out of me. Now, first he's going on the right with his rook. Now he's taking the time out just a step. A pawn on the left, 1 square. David, can you shed some light on what's happening?
Yeah, I mean, it makes some sense for Nepomniachtchi, but this is definitely not the type of game I would ever show to a student. This is not the type of game I would ever show to someone trying to learn the basics of chess, because white is really breaking all the rules. If we do bring up the analysis board, just to show why we are surprised by some of Nepomniachtchi's moves, and maybe why Wesley So is surprised by Nepomniachtchi's moves, is because white has spent so long pushing this pawn forward, bringing his rook to this square. He's trying to build up an attack against the black king, and suddenly, with his last move, he has just pushed a pawn on the other flank, and that is actually the purpose behind that move is to control black's counterplay on the other flank. Maybe if white had been too ambitious, if on the last go, if white had just maybe moved his bishop, for example, then suddenly the black knight might jump into this square, attacking white's pawn in the corner. If that pawn moves, then the black knight jumps in, protected by the black rook at the top of the board, and this is check, and also with a fork. I think Nepomniachtchi, he just wanted to say, this is going to be a one-sided battle. I'm not going to allow any counterplay on this side of the board. You're not using this square as a launch pad for your pieces. So Nepomniachtchi just giving up a free move, wasting time with a pawn, but stopping black's most active idea.
All right. So it's going to be on the right side of the board where all the drama will happen.
Yeah.
And
yeah, he's going to switch his attention to this side. Maybe later on we'll look out for the ideas such as a bishop sacrifice to explode open black's king.
Now, is this simply a must-win style kind of game by Nepomniachtchi?
Yeah. This one, there's huge rewards if you do get to the black king, but also huge risk because the white king is in the middle. Ivanka, you will be shocked by this last move. White's bishop was on that square. What was it? 3 moves ago? It's gone back to where it came from. And that bishop's moved 3 times now in this game. That is not to be recommended. Black's knight jumping into white's half. Black's knight also eyeing up that white pawn in the corner that did move a couple of turns ago. Logical play by Wesley So. I mean, this just shows how much Nepomniachtchi values having the pawn centre with white. If white's pawns weren't there, this is just suicidal chess. You're just taking too many liberties with your position. But because white occupies the centre, maybe white can get away with all these time-consuming manoeuvres. And I'd expect to see maybe right now Nepomniachtchi just move his queen. You have a couple of decent squares for that white queen. Wesley So, you saw his eyes there. He was maybe keeping an eye on the camera, keeping an eye on Nepomniachtchi, maybe hoping that the mosquitoes are going to act on his side again today. Yeah, Nepomniachtchi playing creative chess so far, but whether that turns out well, it's yet to be seen. This one's still in the balance.
OK, so still the most likely is a draw, even if the situation here is very chaotic, crazy.
But, by in the balance, I don't mean a draw. I just mean chances for both sides.
Okay.
I actually think a draw is the least likely result right now. Black has reasons to be happy because he's ahead in development. White has reasons to be happy because it's a full-blooded game. There's no way to trade everything off. There's no way to just hoover off all the pieces, head into the endgame. That tends to be Wesley So's kind of fallback option if given the chance. And now we see Nepomniachtchi. He didn't get the chance to castle, so he's going to be doing it in a long-winded fashion, just shifting his king across one square, maybe later on shifting the king again. to full safety behind some pawns.
How dangerous is this tactic by Nepomniachtchi? Just spending so much time to develop pieces to castle, or not castle, but getting his king to safety.
It's so unusual, you know. You don't see people play chess like this, you know. And the thing is, Wesley will be a little bit put offside by this because he will be having to think completely on his own. This type of position has really never been seen before. So that means he can't really depend on all those years of pattern recognition training where you can go, oh yeah, I've had this before in this particular opening, so therefore I can perhaps adapt this plan. Here, there is so much danger in the position, and this is why I think Wesley is just manoeuvring his pieces because he can't see an active plan. So he's just like, well, fine, I don't see what White's doing, so I'm just going to improve my knight and beg for some decisive action so that, therefore, I can react to that.
Yeah, both sides just biding their time over the last couple of moves, waiting for that decisive action, waiting for things to heat up. With Black's last move, retreating the knight, it looks like Black's losing a lot of time, but there is a clear threat right now for Black. Black is eyeing up White's central pawn, White's E pawn in the middle of the board there, eyed up by the Black Knight and by Black's light-squared bishop. So right now, White has a decision to make. Do you push that pawn forward, or do you maintain the integrity of those pawns? Do you just keep them defended, keep that flexibility that Jovanka was adhering to earlier on? And right now, the way to keep those pawns intact would be to just move the White Queen. The White Queen doing nothing, move the White Queen to that central line, to that E line, defend White's key pawn in the middle. I think that's the most natural. Maybe Wesley's idea is to try and explode open the centre. Maybe he's going to, well, not be impatient, but he's going to finally enact some real direct play next move. If White moves the Queen, Black can start pushing some pawns, and we'll see a real fight. Yeah, look at how focused both of these two players are. They know that the critical moment in this game is coming. It's over the next few moves. If White's strategy just fails, if White's unable to build up an attack against Black's king, then there's nothing to hope for Nepomniachtchi. But if it works, then suddenly Wesley, he's going to have to find so many accurate moves to defend. This one's heating up nicely.
I mean, I feel that Wesley is already having to find some accurate moves because if Nepomniachtchi makes the move that you're suggesting, which is just moving the queen one square forward just to defend the pawn that is under fire, I mean, it's not necessarily that easy for Black to come up with a plan. Like, if you move the queen, well, then there's the possibility that the White Knight can jump forward. If you connect the rooks, well, I mean, how are you going to do that? What are you going to do with your Black rook? How are you going to wait? Not easy. Yeah. Not easy questions. I mean, I can't offhand tell you what's going to happen. This move, I didn't anticipate because it forces the pace.
Look at the bar.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, speechless almost, because Nepomniachtchi, he's opening things up, but White is not ready. White hasn't finished development. Some of White's pieces, White's rook, bishop on that left side, they aren't active. White's king not fully safe yet, hasn't evacuated the centre, and White's giving up a pawn, opening up the middle of the board. You cannot do that when your pieces aren't ready. And there we see Stockfish, the computer, thinks that Nepomniachtchi is bluffing. Not necessarily a blunder, but probably just a misjudgment, a miscalculation. Black can simply capture that white pawn that has advanced, and I don't see the follow-up yet. Clearly, Stockfish, the computer, doesn't see the follow-up. I do think that Nepomniachtchi may be just rushing. He sensed that that was the moment, but as Jovanka mentioned, maybe it's just time to consolidate, keep the tension as long as possible, wait for Wesley to get low on time, wait for Wesley to get nervous. If we bring up the analysis board to try and investigate what's happening here, Black, as we're expecting here, the most natural move in the position is to just capture the white pawn in the middle, the white pawn that has just moved. What's his plan, Jovanka? Is it to bring his bishop to this diagonal, line it up with the black king, line it up against this point with the white rook, the bishop and rook attacking this? But maybe this is what... OK, we're about to see it on the board. Yeah. Black did capture. Maybe Nepomniachtchi has missed that actually Black can ignore that threat. Black can simply play pawn takes pawn. This is going to happen on the board. We've got this position, and I think if Black just plays pawn takes pawn, ignoring the threat against his king, this is not easy to do. You need nerves of steel. But if he does this, allowing bishop takes pawn check, just sidestepping with the king, I think Black is winning, because after bishop takes rook, Black can simply recapture. Black currently the exchange down, a rook for a bishop, but next move, Black about to win some serious material. Black about to win a piece next.
Wow. I actually think that that's one of the few moves to to actually give black the advantage.
This position.
Yeah.
Pawn takes pawn.
Pawn takes pawn. I mean,
takes courage, though, right?
Right. I mean, it's so natural. You know, if white attacks a pawn to give check to win material. I mean, who is not going to pick up a pawn and try to block the situation? But that would be a mistake, actually, if you were to.
You allow white's knight maybe in to give check later on if you push this pawn up. The move that maybe is more natural to me would be to move the rook across, but this would also be a mistake because white's queen would step up, and due to the pin along this diagonal, for example, if black plays pawn takes pawn, white can actually capture here, and this is checkmate. Black's pawn on this square unable to move because it is pinned by white's bishop along this diagonal. So actually, in the current position, Wesley So is pretty much forced to find pawn takes pawn. Every other move looks pretty bad for black. So right now...
What a black and white situation.
Yeah, it's going to be either very good for white or either very good for black after this next move. Let's go back to the players. Let's see if Wesley has... Well, if he's able to find that courage, find those nerves of steel and just play pawn takes pawn, ignoring Nepomniachtchi's threat.
And remember, everyone, if Wesley So wins this game, it's going to be over. He's going to be in the final. Jan Nepomniachtchi, he has to at least find a draw here. Yeah. Preferably win it with the white pieces.
Yeah, well, what a moment of suspense. You know, we'll find out whether Wesley has ice water in his veins. What a bold move. Yeah. I mean, I just don't know. I don't think it's possible, actually, to find it in a classical, in a rapid game.
Yeah, this type of position, if you show someone, if you say black has one move, one winning move, then maybe you find it. Or if you spend 5-10 minutes looking at all the options and you're suddenly thinking, actually, all of them are really bad for black, then you might be forced to find it, just out of pure process of elimination. Everything else for black, it looks really ugly, actually, right now. You can't defend white's threat safely. You can't defend it in a harmonious way. So, actually, maybe it's just best to ignore white's threat. But like you say, Ivanka, it's incredibly hard. Human instinct, if you see a threat against your king, you just defend against it. So, Wesley, he needs to break down those kind of mental barriers, go away from all his prejudices and, just ignore the threat on black's king. Just continue taking pawns in the centre. Continue taking what Nepomniachtchi has offered you.
And thinking for 3 minutes here now, Wesley So, you still think that is too little time for...
I think you'll find it.
OK, you do.
I think just because there's no other attractive option, if he plays it, pawn takes pawn, nerves of steel, Nepomniachtchi reacting immediately. Will Nepomniachtchi now realise that there's no follow-up for white? It looks great for white, but the problem is, no matter what you do now, white's bishop, white's light-squared bishop in the centre and white's knight, they're both under fire. One of those will drop off, and there's no way to continue the attack. For example, here, if white steps up the queen one square, if white just advances the queen, eyeing up a pawn in front of the black king, then black's knight will come to the side to defend against that. And I think it's easy to defend all the threats for black. And there's not enough attacking forces for white right now.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, the best thing that I see is just to grab the rook. Take the rook and
pray
that it's going to be sufficient.
Follows your advice, Ivanka.
Yeah, because otherwise, you know, the black knight was coming in and was going to be attacking all sorts of pieces. So now the big issue is that Wesley can just capture the bishop. And by bishop, I mean the dark-squared bishop. And there is still the problem of the bishop and the knight being simultaneously attacked. So, I mean, is there any way that Nepomniachtchi can actually mix it up?
I'm struggling to see a way. If black just recaptures that bishop with his own bishop, maybe even with his queen, I don't see any way. White can maybe maintain a pin, just drop back his light-squared bishop. Let's bring up the analysis board.
Definitely.
Let's keep an eye on the players as well, if we can, just to see Nepomniachtchi in real focus mode right now. So black debating how to recapture this piece. There's two ways with the... OK, he made it easy for us. He captured with the bishop. This makes a lot of sense. Now, these two pieces are under fire, and there's no way to actually keep them both, apart from if you just retreat with your bishop. Now, white's knight cannot be captured due to a pin along this diagonal, but the problem for white is that after black just brings his knight to block that diagonal, suddenly there's too many threats. The queens might come off the board. The queens might come off the board in the centre. Also, black is attacking this rook. Black is attacking this knight. Everything is just wrong for white. Everything is hanging, and maybe this is the best bet, but it does still look desperate for white. It looks just like you've put all your pieces on the wrong squares where they're easily targets. And this rook especially spent so much time getting here, has to lose a move now because it is attacked by Black's knight. Desperate times for Nepomniachtchi.
And it's almost as though White has inadvertently put all their pieces on the wrong square, because here White would love to go queen takes queen. But, you know, queen takes queen isn't going to be met by rook takes queen. It's going to be met by knight takes rook. Check.
Yeah, check. And then next move, you capture the queen back. And Black, for example, pawn takes knight. Now Black is ahead. If we do a quick count, he's only ahead 1 pawn, but he does have 2 bishops. And there's still, I mean, it's just no hope. There's still threats against this pawn. That pawn's weak. White has double pawns on this side. 1 pawn down for White, and your position, it lies in tatters. It's in ruins. And if this is the best Nepomniachtchi can hope for, a position where he's fighting for a draw, but actually I think no chance here, then it's going to be difficult.
Yeah, it's like the cards have all aligned in Wesley's favour. But we have to say, that was just amazing defensive calculation there by Wesley. And you can just see how he is up close. He is so enthusiastic and just really getting into the game. Both players are, in fact. Nepomniachtchi desperately trying to find out the best way to create some problems. I mean...
This whole tournament, Wesley's barely put a foot wrong. I was trying to count in my head. I think this might be his 29th game of the tournament, and still undefeated. And it looks like he's going to win. Yeah, he's in the form of his life right now. He has won previous tournaments on the tour. We know he's a great rabbit player, but I think this tournament's been his most impressive up to this point. And yeah, Nepomniachtchi's starting to realise. We see on his face, Nepomniachtchi lacking ideas. He saw this far, but he didn't realise exactly how dire White's situation is. Ivanka, do you see any hope? I don't here for White anymore.
Aside from doing some strange moves. OK, but we have a move from Nepomniachtchi. He's just moved his rook forward. OK, so is there an immediate problem with pawn takes bishop?
I mean, that's the most obvious move, right? White's bishop might just get captured. And I think that's the most likely move from Wesley So. There might also be other tempting options. You could push a pawn attacking White's rook right now. The rook that has just moved, you could pick up Black's f-pawn, push that forward. OK, Nepomniachtchi, on with his last facial expression, he's laughing now as well, Nepomniachtchi. He knows that he needs a favour. He needs 5 favours from Wesley So in this game. He needs at least a couple of blunders in order to fight back.
But whilst the Black King is some danger, let's just say. I mean, it's not much, David, but, you know, it doesn't have any pawn cover, so there's always hope. OK, pawn takes bishop on the board, and...
the queen will recapture, giving check.
Exactly, and there's one big problem.
Black knight will block that check if White captures this pawn right now with his queen.
That's a ruthless move, David.
OK, he doesn't. Instead, he pins the Black knight. That's very sensible. That Black knight maybe was threatening to jump into the centre of the board, so you pin it first. But, again, plenty of options here for Nepomniachtchi. Personally, I would be tempted to pick up the Black Queen that is pinned right now, get it out the line of the White Rook. Just bring it towards that right side.
Yeah.
Just cover everything.
Yeah, that's a great defensive technique. You know, when your king is even in the hint of a little bit of danger, always have your queen defending her king. It's just good technique, because the queen is an amazing defender. She's a great attacker. You would much rather that she would be attacking and being all aggressive. But if push comes to shove and she is needed on the defensive, put her there. So that's the move, actually, that comes very naturally to me as well. I would instinctively do that. I mean, any hope. Any hope for Nepomniachtchi here. Yeah. Like maybe queen takes pawn, check, you know.
He needs hope.
Right, exactly.
OK, the Black Rook comes down the board. That is also a very, very impressive move by Wesley So. This is ruthless. He's being merciless right now. He just defends his central pawn. Now, if White wants to capture that central pawn, and he needs to at some point, that's going to involve a trade of rooks at the very minimum. Actually, I don't think it's possible to even capture Black's central pawn right now. And if you can't capture Black's middle pawn... I mean, actually, 2 games ago, Black had this pawn on this square as well, and it was so powerful. It later was about to become a new queen. And yeah, Nepomniachtchi, his attack has completely disappeared. There's no pieces around the Black King to initiate that attack. He's material down on the board. If we do a quick count, White has a rook for 2 bishops and a pawn even. So Black has an extra pawn and the 2 bishops just for 1 rook. 2 bishops on their own. are worth at least 6. There's 3 points each, but together they're worth even more. 2 bishops alone, that's 6 points, plus a pawn, 7, only against a white's rook, worth 5. And there we see white's queen advancing. Black can do anything here. Black can even just take another pawn, I think, on that left side now with his rook.
Yeah. Well, it's getting really, really dramatic for Jan Nepomniachtchi. He needs a win in one of these 2 last games, and actually right now it's looking like he will be knocked out, or at least not make it to the final, but to the 3rd place final is where he's heading right now, because Wesley So is playing fantastic. He is well on his way to the final, and the 3rd game between Magnus Carlson and Timur Rajabov has also started. Actually, if Magnus Carlson wins that game, that one too will be over. He will be in the final. Timur Rajabov, he needs at least a draw, and he has to win one of the 2 final games to take that one to tie breaks. So the drama has started.
Yeah. It's so thrilling right now. You know, we have a situation where Nepomniachtchi has gone too hard for the win, and it's now rebounded on him. It's a basic example of when it comes to playing Wesley, do not poke the bear. I mean, now he's just got an overwhelming position. But there are a few pieces, the queen, the rook, and the knight, that are potentially hovering around the black king. So it's not all over.
Yeah, Wesley, it reminds me of that phrase. He doesn't always play chess. But when he does, he is a world beater. You say it's not all over, but Wesley So just eliminating all of the white pieces there, trading a bishop for a knight. White's pawns are shattered. Look at this. This is cynical stuff from Wesley So, not taking any risk. Now offering a trade of rooks. He got rid of white's knight. He's going to get rid of one of white's rooks. And the more pieces are traded, the easier it's going to become for black to convert his material advantage.
Yeah, but I think that the last 2 moves were very instructive by Wesley. He's just killing the game, because all he needs to do is just remove any potential danger, and that's it. Game over. The far advanced queen's pawn is just going to decide absolutely everything. I don't see... Sometimes the situation is just hopeless, and I really don't see any way for white to carry on.
Mouse lips.
Lost on time.
Yeah. Maybe.
Mosquitoes. Maybe if there are some mosquitoes in Minnesota right now.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And imagine that as well. It's coming down to that last game yesterday where he lost with all the mosquitoes just killing him.
Yeah. If he had just managed to make a draw in that game yesterday, if yesterday's match was a draw, then he wouldn't have had to press so hard in this game, Nepomniachtchi. The match would still be tied, and anything could still happen.
Yeah.
But that's why it's so difficult in must-win situations against the best players in the world. Yes, you can throw everything at them, but you might get punished for it.
Mm-hmm. And I think this is also a little bit of warning of just going too hard and playing too directly, because we saw that Nepomniachtchi's big mistake was actually pushing the pawn in the centre, just forcing the play. And
Wesley now continuing his strategy of trying to trade pieces. He offers the trade of queens this time. If the queens disappear, the black king will never have to worry. That's why Nepomniachtchi steps back with his queen, trying to keep the queens on the board as long as possible.
But there's no solace in the endgame as well, because the bishop and the knight are just going to overwhelm the white rook. So, again, what to do?
Black could move his knight, maybe attack the white queen. Black could just improve his bishop. Black can move the black queen.
Black can do absolutely everything, but what's white to do? Whites can't do anything. I would think about attacking the queen.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Black's knight can jump and attack the white queen right now. Yeah, we see it on Nepomniachtchi's face.
Yeah, I know.
He knows it's coming. He's just staying alive right now, as the BGs would say. He's just trying to survive for the next few moves and hopes that Wesley gets nervous. OK, he brings his knight to that side. Slightly mysterious. It feels like the knight wants to be on the other side of the board, just in case the black king needs a bit of protection. But, OK, the black strong pawn has dropped. Will Wesley be greedy? Will he grab white's pawn at the left corner there? It feels like that pawn won't survive much longer anyway, so maybe you don't need to grab it immediately. But maybe Wesley feels in the mood for food, in the mood for some pawns.
Yeah, well, I wondered whether his idea was perhaps to work on the pin that is there against the white rook. Mm-hmm. So maybe I was thinking attack attack the queen.
Well,
you can take the pawn as well. There's no doubt about that. But I was just trying to find ways to finish the game off immediately. Okay, so the pawn is off the board. The white did sidestep with the king, but now the white queen is under attack, and she has to keep an eye on her rook.
Yeah, if you imagine the queen's coming off right now, black has these 2 pawns on the left side. Those will just pick each other up, hold their hands, and walk down the board. Supported by black's knight and bishop. And look at that last move, just blocking in white's rook. Any small hopes that Nepomniachtchi has, every turn, Wesley So is crushing those dreams, crushing those hopes. The white rook stepping to an open line. I wouldn't be surprised if the black knight steps back again, maybe blocking that white rook's line, but instead Wesley just pushes his pawns. Why not?
There's no threat in the position, so...
White's queen too passive, there are no threats against the black king.
Yeah, and it's just a rook. I mean, that's just a rook that's going to mobilise itself. And again, not one single threat against the black king. Now there is potentially some ideas of moving the queen 2 squares along the diagonal and trying to magic up some fairy dust, let's say.
Yeah, white needs 2 or 3 moves to start attacking Wesley. 3.5 minutes, that should be enough, but there is a chance if he doesn't find a knockout blow, if he doesn't find a way to continue pushing his black pawns, there is a chance if he goes under 1 minute, maybe the nerves will kick in. He's so close to the finishing line right now. Every time I say Wesley So's name, I say so close. But yeah, he's so close to the finishing line, and that's when nerves kick in for any human. The adrenaline's pumping, it's hard to stay fully focused and always being accurate.
If I were Wesley, I would also just retreat my knight now, just to kind of kill the possibility of white moving the queen. And there's no checks on the board. And the knight is actually quite nice if I'm primarily thinking of moving it backwards so that it looks at the the white rook. And then I have ideas of checking or whatever. But a knight is a king's best friend.
Yes.
So that's my move,
so
without thinking.
Bring back that black knight towards...
I don't want any trouble whatsoever with the queen and a rook. I want to kill the game. That's my focus.
Yeah, Wesley So pausing, slightly surprising that he's paused now. I mean, over the last few moves, he could have maybe erected a better defensive setup. So maybe he's starting to realise there are some dangers, and he pushes a pawn. That is ugly. Maybe it's effective, but it is slightly ugly. It does weaken the black king. There's no way to check it yet. If white's rook goes up to check the black king, that square is covered actually by black's bishop. So there's no way to check the black king, but you don't want to touch pawns around your king. That just opens up some holes, opens up some weak squares. He continues pushing that pawn. These top players, they know when to kind of break the rules and take the risks and go against conventional wisdom. Looks strong from Wesley So. It wasn't obvious at all. It didn't seem natural to even touch that pawn, but now he is taking squares away from white's rook.
I mean, the bar saying 6.4 advantage for Wesley. So, I mean, is there anything Jan Nepomniachtchi can do at all?
No. Yeah. I mean, that's the sad fact of the matter. I mean, he's lost over the board. He does need to mix it up, but the problem is that his rook and queen are not coordinated enough. And just look at Wesley's pieces. You know, the black queen can now jump back if needed to the defense of the king. And it's not just that. That queen dropping back is actually quite a universal move because now she threatens to check the white king. And every single piece is like protected. I mean, poor Nepomniachtchi. It's, the end is nigh.
Yeah, where do you even put that white rook?
I don't know, David.
See a safe square. I mean, you can bring it the whole way to the top of the board, but the black queen will just step back.
Exactly. She's going to step back and she's going to come with some deadly threats of her own. If you step it backwards, that's a miserable move to make when you're trying to hold the position. I mean, I think Nepomniachtchi is not even thinking about winning. It's more about drawing and holding everything, but not going to happen.
Last chance for Nepomniachtchi is just maybe one final trick, one final threat. Hope that Wesley So overlooks it, hope that he misses it. There's no way to create threats yet, though, and that's the main issue. He does bring his rook up to the top of the board. That does look like the most active move. Often in such situations, when you're losing and you know you're losing, you have to scare your opponent, at least, at the minimum. I've been in those situations. I actually once blundered a whole queen in one move. I was just a queen down against a very strong opponent. I just continued to play. I kept playing scary moves, and he wasn't able to finish me off. He kept seeing ghosts. So that's what Nepomniachtchi has to hope for, that Wesley will see some ghosts.
If it is a draw, they will play a game 4. And of course, Jan Nepomniachtchi can win that as well and take it to tie breaks.
Yep, exactly. So draw here. He needs a few miracles. I'm not sure a miracle will be enough right now, but if Nepomniachtchi gets it, then... I mean, Wesley So is going low on the clock. He is thinking now, maybe overthinking slightly because he knows how close he is.
Yeah.
He does bring the Black Queen back as expected as a defender, but... also potentially going towards the White King now. The White King potentially a target. White's Queen stepping back, defending the White Rook. What do you think, Jovanka? Give check with the Black Queen, or do you just continue pushing your pawns on the left side? Because there's no threats for White. Both good.
Do whatever you like, David. I mean, I would be tempted to give a check, but also I do like the quite cold-blooded nature of just pushing the pawn there in the left. OK, so now... Nepomniachtchi even has to be a bit careful as to where he's going to put his king, because if he puts in the wrong square, there's going to be a knight check, and that knight check comes with immediate consequence. So...
yeah, White's king just doesn't have a safe square. I think suddenly the tables have turned in terms of attacking, and White's king is much weaker than Black's. Yeah, it's depressing when you're material down and you're getting attacked. That's double whammy there.
What I would be tempted to do is when the White King steps back, I would be tempted now just to push the pawn. I don't think I would capture that pawn, primarily because...
So Black's knight capturing a pawn right now?
Yeah, because it's
pretty good.
It actually looks good as well, doesn't it? What am I talking about? Because the Queen has to guard against a potential checkmate. So...
yeah.
Anything goes.
There we go. Another pawn drops off the board. Black now threatening the White Queen. If the White Queen does bring herself up, then Black's Queen's actually going to come down and trap the White King. Yeah,
yes. All over.
All over.
It reminds me of that football line that we all know. They think it's all over.
It is
now.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, I'm struggling to find hope for Nepomniachtchi. Maybe the best move is just bring the Queen across one square to the left, attack the Black Knight, keep the game going. That sets a small trap, at least, in the position. Black's Queen now, if it comes down to defend Black's Knight, at least it would allow White's Queen to start checking the Black King. But Wesley won't walk into that pretty blatant, pretty obvious trap. The Black Knight can move away.
He can just block.
Yeah. Black's bishop can even take a pawn right now. That would be really...
That would be so cold-blooded, David. I just love your suggestions. And I also love what Wesley So is doing, because, you know, he's like, do I need to defend my knight? No, I'm simply going to counter-attack your rook. And again, ask you, what are you going to do? And that move is just ruthless, because it's not only threatening the rook, it's also threatening the pawn. And if the Queen is allowed to take the pawn with check, nothing. So, nothing can save.
White's H pawn there, White's pawn in the corner, also under fire. And it might be time to...
call it quits.
Yeah, call it quits. Or maybe White can try a couple of more spite checks. White can grab the Black Knight, and once the rook drops off the board, you can take another pawn and just say, OK, I'm going to lose, but at least I've checked you. I know when I was young, that was what a lot of people did. Just before they resigned, they say, oh, I've checked you at least once. Sometimes that's good enough. It's some consolation. And... yeah, Nepomniachtchi, he just resigns and he's out.
It's over. Wesley So is ready for the final in the FTX Crypto Cup. Jan Nepomniachtchi, he resigns. It's over for him. The American is ready for his third final in the Meltwater Champions Chess Tour. That is extremely impressive stuff by Wesley So. Unfortunately, Jan Nepomniachtchi, with all those mosquitoes yesterday, well, he did need to win today, and he wasn't able to. Wesley So, after 3 games today, is ready for the final. Impressive stuff by Wesley So again.
Marvellous play. I mean, what can I say? You know, Nepomniachtchi gave him one opportunity, and that was all it took. And after that, Wesley So was just absolutely dominating the position. He didn't give Nepomniachtchi a chance. Impressive.
All right. Well, It was a great game by Jan Nepomniachtchi. He gave it his all. We could definitely see with the white pieces. He wanted to go for the win in this one. It wasn't enough, but David will now give us the FTX exchange of today.
In this critical position, Jan Nepomniachtchi, he didn't find the best continuation. Here, he decided to sacrifice a pawn with white. White's central pawn under attack, maybe he could have just defended it by shifting his queen up one square, keeping an eye on the central pawn. Instead, he pushed forward. Wesley So accepted that gift, the free pawn in the center there. He took it off the board, and after white brought his bishop to the long diagonal, seemingly creating a threat, Wesley So actually just sacrificed what we call the exchange in chess. When you sacrifice the exchange, it means you give up your rook for a bishop or for a knight. And Wesley So sacrificed the exchange by just capturing a pawn in the center, calling Nepomniachtchi's bluff. After bishop takes pawn check, the king just sidestepped, and after bishop takes rook, the bishop recaptured. Here, black temporarily is the exchange down. He is down a rook for a bishop. But the main problem for white is that the rest of his pieces are vulnerable. In this position, a bishop is about to drop off or a knight is about to drop off. And we saw a few moves later, Wesley So did manage to win the white bishop, and he converted his advantage seamlessly, very smoothly, just traded all the pieces off the board, kept the black king safe, and that was enough. Very impressive display by Wesley So.
Impressive stuff by Wesley So, ready for the final in the FTX Crypto Cup. This is a major. It's the third major in the tour. If he wins this, he will be automatically qualified for the tour final. But who knows who is going to face? And, well, David, is this Wesley back to, you know, when he was at his strongest earlier in the tour, playing the final in the Opera Euro Rapid and Skilling Open?
Yeah, definitely reminds me of November and in February when he won those two tournaments. He beat Magnus in the final, and yeah, I mean he's going to be actually maybe the favourite, even if he faces Magnus in the final this time, because Wesley now 29 games unbeaten, undefeated, very rarely looking in trouble, nearly never blundering. It's looking good for fans of Wesley So.
Yeah, definitely. But the question is, who will he face in that final? It's going to be either Magnus Carlson or Timur Rajabov. We're going to head into game 3 between these two players. If Magnus Carlsen wins this game, he will be in the final once again facing Wesley So. Timur Rajabov needs at least a draw in this one, and then if this is a draw, he needs a win in the final game to take this to tie breaks. Magnus has won one game so far today. And okay, David, what's happening here?
Yeah, if we look at the position on the board, first thing I always do in a fresh position is a quick count, take things back to basics. White is one pawn up. On the right side of the board, on the right half of the board, white has an extra pawn, 3 for 2. Black can take a pawn right now with his knight. The black knight can capture white's central pawn, but white's rook also threatening a pawn. Magnus Carlsen as black should, well, I mean, he would love a draw right now. He's on the defensive. He's not out of danger. He definitely has to defend well, but if he defends well, maybe he can make a draw purely because the pawns are starting to disappear. It's clear the world champion, though, he's the one on the defensive. Rajabov has been upping the pressure over the last few moves. Rajabov doing what he needs to do, just asking the world champion to defend a very difficult endgame. What do you think, Ivanka? Winning chances here for Rajabov?
Huge winning chances. Everything is speaking in his favour. You know, not only is he material up, that's strike one in his favour. He has the better piece combination. This is something we touched upon many times before, but generally speaking, a rook and a bishop works better than a rook and a knight. And this is especially true when the position is open and pawns are on both sides of the board. So I'm thinking really like that about white's position. So I think it's really good chances for winning. I believe so.
Yeah, rook and bishop, it's basically, they do the same job as a queen, right? So, yeah, it's hard to deal with rook and bishop combo. And right now, like you say, very open position. Yeah, white, I mean, black has weak pawns. Black's remaining pawns, especially on that right side, those are easy targets. What will Magnus do to try and save this game? The most obvious move to me, there's two obvious moves, and both of those are knight moves. Either you take white's pawn in the middle of the board, but personally, I don't like white's rook getting active, white's rook taking black's pawn. That's why Magnus chose the second knight move. He brought his knight to the centre, attacking white's rook, but also defending black's pawn. And now there's a judgment call, that white rook running away from the attack. Ivanka, would you be tempted to take white's bishop off the board? You said that combo,
yes.
That was the worst thing.
Yes, I'm taking it.
You're
No
taking that
questions
white bishop.
asked. Yes.
Rook endgames, pure rook endgames, when knights and bishops have all disappeared, those do have a drawish reputation, drawish tendency.
And then there are some hopes for black, and the hopes that I can see is that when it comes to the king positions, you can see that black's king is actually closer to the action than white's king, and that does give me hope for black to defend the position. So for me, it would be knight takes bishop, done, dusted, okay, it's on the board, and you can see Magnus. Actually, this is really instructive. He prefers to defend the pawn with his rook just to keep the pawn structure intact. So he doesn't concede any squares whatsoever to the white rook.
Yeah, very solid, very nice play there by Magnus Carlson. And I agree. I think black had to take off that white bishop. That white bishop was just too strong. And that white bishop also was previously stopping the black king from stepping into the middle. Now black has a clear plan, at least. And that makes endgames so much easier if you have a clear plan. Black just wants to step the black king forward and capture that white isolated pawn in the middle. And it's hard to see how to stop that plan. Rajabov tries to attack some undefended pawns. The white rook just eyeing up black's pawn in the corner there. You can defend that. You can maybe ignore it, but you can defend that in two ways. You can advance one of your left pawns forward as black. I'm not sure which one is better, which one's more accurate there.
I was tempted to only pick up my, not the corner pawn, but the one next to it. The reason why I don't want to defend that pawn by advancing my corner pawn is because of white's switchback. He will switch back to the original square where the rook came from, and then dance up the board.
And while we're waiting for Magnus Carlson to make his move, we are joined by the first finalist in the FTX Crypto Cup. Congratulations, Wesley.
Hi, yeah, thank you. Thanks for your well wishes. Thanks.
Yeah, what is it like finally being back in a final? I mean, you've been dominating in the Meltwater Champions chess tour in the first few tournaments here.
Yeah, I haven't lost any game this tournament yet so far, which is a huge blessing. But yeah, in all fairness, I'd like to apologize to Jan for the match. I mean, I think he pretty much, I think the candidate, he might still be a bit tired from candidates. So I don't think he played his best today. But in all honesty, I think he was putting me in a lot of pressure in a couple of games yesterday. Also today in the first game, I think I was under severe pressure in the middle game. And I think he missed a win at some point. So I was very fortunate. But the third game went surprisingly well for me. I decided to avoid the Nimso Indian because clearly he'll have something prepared. And I went for the second line with the semi-Tarash, which I don't think he was prepared for that because I got a very comfortable position after move 15. And he blundered at some point.
Yeah, it was a crazy game, this final one. Well, Wesley, we haven't seen you in the final the last two tournaments. Opera Euro Rapid was the last one. So what is it like being back in there?
Oh yeah, I'm very glad and happy to be back in the finals. I mean, I think every player here is tough. So I mean, doesn't matter quarterfinals, semifinals. You're gonna have to play a strong opponent. But to be in the finals is special, especially this one. I'm hoping for a rematch with Magnus.
Yeah.
But at the same time, of course, Tamor would be a very tough opponent also. And it's not clear at this point who's going to win their match. It could very well possibly head into a blitz. But yeah, I'm very pleased, and hopefully I have enough energy to play the finals.
And Wesley, looking forward to that final. You've in the past you've mentioned that you don't see yourself as the favourite, but surely you must be the favourite, no matter whether it's Rajabov or Carlsen, because you've been undefeated this tournament throughout the tour. You've been fantastic. You've beaten Magnus in 2 finals. How would you evaluate your chances? Are you the big favourite in that one?
Yeah, no, I think Magnus is the favourite in any match still. He's not showing any signs of slowing down at this point in his career, so he's still the favorite any match. But again, as usual, I hope to put a good fight and put up some entertainment. And it's hard to say, but any match with Magnus is a big honor already, and a good learning experience.
And I'm curious today, what were your chess preparations like? Because today you knew that Nepomniachtchi would be coming at you like a madman. So how did you prepare for that?
Well, I had a lot of sleep, 10 hours of sleep, first of all. I was solving some positions yesterday and also earlier this morning, just trying to stay sharp, just solving some difficult positions. Also, I did some opening preparation before the tournament. In fact, the semi-Tarrasch in the last game was one of my prepared lines with the black pieces. And I mean, I thought that Ian would go for d4 at some point. I mean, I thought there's a 60% chance he would play one e4 and another 30% chance to play one d4. And yeah, it went well. So basically, just prepare a little bit in the opening and then try to stay sharp.
Finally, Wesley, I'm curious. This might be a stupid question, but I'm noticing the boxes behind you. Are those moving boxes?
Yeah, those are Apple boxes. Well, we moved recently to a different place in Minnesota. So we've been living in this house for 2 years, and also my sister and my mother has an online store, so they kind of need online boxes to put or Apple boxes to put their stuff. But
cool.
Yeah, it's for the camera, really. It's for the second device, but it proved to be very handy. And yeah, when we moved 2 years ago, we had like 200 Apple boxes.
Wow! So it's apples, Galaxy apples.
Yeah, I should probably move it. But,
no, they're nice.
And Wesley,
yeah, very convenient. You can put a chessboard in there, or a book, or a second camera.
And those apples, they're Galaxy apples. And our quiz of the day is a question: which chess player would you take with you to the moon?
Yeah.
You choose.
Yeah. I saw it on Twitter this morning, and I saw very funny. One of the answers was Anish Giri and Magnus, and leave them there.
So that's what you would do. Good idea.
Well, yeah. I mean, which chess player am I going to take to the moon? Yeah, probably Magnus. Yeah, and leave him there. That way, the fight for second place or the fight for world championship is pretty much open.
Yeah. Very good answer, Wesley. Now, thanks for joining us, and we wish you the best of luck in the final tomorrow. It's going to be exciting.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us. Wesley So, a very clever answer there, taking Magnus Carlson to the moon and leaving the world champion there. So he's not going to be such a tough opponent. But is it likely that Magnus now will be the opponent for Wesley in the final here?
Rajabov, he's got something to say about that, and he is trying to fight for the win here. Right now, White is still 1 pawn up, and look how active White's king is. Magnus, with his last move, trying to attack some of White's pawns, but yeah, this is very difficult to defend for Magnus Carlsen. If anyone could defend it, it is him, but right now, it does look like White's active king, combined with his extra pawn on the right side, gives great winning chances. I mean, what do you think here, Jovanka? Can he hold it? It's not going to be easy.
It's not going to be easy, but there is one thing that I'm a little bit concerned about. You know, sometimes in rook and pawn endings, you're given a choice, active king or active rook. And you should almost always choose active rook. And it's just... So
you think White's rook is not active enough right now?
Exactly. I mean, yes, the king looks beautiful. It looks really beautiful. When do you see a king like that? But you can see that Magnus is causing a lot of mischief with his active rook. You know, he's attacking pawns. The rook is a lot more flexible, a lot faster piece than the king.
Well, Timur now with 30 seconds to go on the clock. I just noticed. Is this hard to play with that little time on the clock?
Yeah. Magnus, he will set tricks, he will set traps. He knows exactly what type of rook endgames will be holdable, will be defensible. So in that situation, Magnus has maybe the upper hand. It's a big handicap now, having 10 seconds on the clock when you need to create winning chances. White's king now stepping back, running all the way back to protect its own pawns. That White king, expect to see it go towards the left, retreat to the left to keep its pawns intact. And suddenly the White king is no longer active. The White rook does take a few moves to get active itself. So yeah, maybe the clock situation is going to prove a big hurdle for Rajabov to overcome, as well as, of course, Magnus's defences.
Yeah. It's a very complicated ending. I mean, most rook and pawn endings are. And you can see the White King has taken itself on a bit of a journey. You know, it did look like it was going to step forward and take pole position. But, OK, that's not been possible, and all because of Magnus's active rook.
I think he's found the best winning attempt, at least the best winning plan.
Yeah.
Because White's king had to keep its pawn safe and it had to run away from the checks. Now White's rook is simply threatening to go up 2 squares and start attacking Black's pawns on the left side, which are defenceless. Yes. Those pawns, easy targets. So I don't know, for Magnus, it's hard suddenly to know exactly where to put the Black king, exactly where to put the Black rook, because you don't have targets. You have to wait for White's pieces to go active and then react. And it's harder to react in games.
Well, one thing that I would be tempted to do is actually step my rook back 1 square just to attack the white pawn and try to provoke some kind of line opening, so that when the rook does come, it can potentially attack the White King and give some checks. So I just want some provocation moves. OK, so White does have one undefended pawn right now. You want to step the Black rook back 1 square, up the board 1 square to attack it. Yes.
That would be very logical. That's the type of move that I would maybe play if I'm low on time. I just want to gain a bit of extra time. I'm not sure really... I don't see what it gains immediately.
Well, my whole idea is that if I force the pawn to step forward, then I can just use my king to cover some important squares. And then maybe that there's going to be a check.
OK, but
my idea.
OK, we'll see. If Magnus tries that, I think White will defend that pawn with his king. And you can give another check. White will use pawns to blockade. And, yeah, I don't see any immediate ways to make gains as Black. I think White still has an easy path. Even if you stop the White rook going up 2 squares and coming across immediately, the White rook will eventually be able to go towards that left side, and it will become a race, I do think. OK, so we do have a move. He's attacked the White rook with the king. So now Rajabov must move the rook. And here comes the question. Do you just go passive with your own rook? As soon as Black goes passive with his rook, you mentioned earlier, Jovanka, it's more important to get White's rook active. Now the White rook is finally active. As soon as White's king gets active again, it's not currently, but if the White king gets active again, 2 active pieces and an extra pawn should decide.
So you would advocate...
OK, I'm not so sure about that one. Magnus trying to eliminate a set of pawns on that right side.
Yeah, interesting.
That's very brave. If he can trade a set of pawns, then that would help Magnus in general. But now going up the board, now he's eyeing up 2 pawns. So currently 2 pawns down, temporarily 2 pawns down for Black. But he's going to win one of them back. Which one does Rajabov give back? Does he allow you to take the corner pawn, or does he allow you to take the pawn on the right?
I think let the pawn on the right drop, because I feel that the action is going to happen on the left, and it's to do with the king placement. The Black king is kind of offside on the right. Everything to the left.
So, yeah, White will just actually use his corner pawn there, his extra pawn on the H-line. White's going to use that as bait. He's going to hope that that distracts the Black king and the rook, and then sooner or later the goal is to go towards Black's pawns on the other side. Yeah, that looks like it should be the winning plan long term. First, Rajabov gives a check. I'm slightly surprised by that one. He's allowing Black's king to go back towards the left. But, OK, now Rajabov bring his rook to the other side, threatening to give check. Bring that rook down 1 square, checking the Black king, attacking some of Black's pawns.
Computer doesn't like it.
Computer doesn't like it, but to me that looks very strong.
It looks really strong. I mean, what's happening? Is it to do with the fact that you just give up a pawn?
That is so clever by Magnus Carlson. I think he's found the best defence. I think he's going to hold this game now because Black is going to give up his pawn, one of his pawns on the left side, and then he's going to race the Black king across to that flank. White's pawn on the right corner now is doomed. You don't need to take it immediately. That's the key. Just leave it there. Black's rook is going to snap it off sometime soon. Rajabov now with 10 seconds left. I think he missed this last move.
5 seconds.
OK, he just pushes a pawn. That is calm. Now it's time for Black's king to race over to that side.
And is doing that. I mean, that is such an impressive defensive resource that Magnus has just found. So I suspect that White can... Yeah, I would have said cut the king off. But it wasn't really doing too much if you cut the king.
Gives the check. He's going to bring his rook back.
OK, yeah, this is good.
OK, so Rajabov, he didn't have time to go and win one of Black's pawns because actually Black's king would have gone across. 2 versus 1 on just one same side is a dead draw. So White needed, if he wanted to win both of Black's pawns on their left side, but there just wasn't time to win both of them. That's why he's gone back to the defence of his other pawn. But now...
Yeah, the king's kind of come forward. No, it's not enough.
Yeah, the problem is Black's rook is active, attacking White's pawn and controlling the other side. White's rook purely passive, defending a pawn. Look at Rajabov's face. He knows he's blown it. He let the win slip. And Magnus, yeah, this is why he's so good in the endgame expert. Not only does he grind out small advantages into wins, he gets difficult positions and saves those draws.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is just technical excellence, and they've actually agreed a result, a draw.
There it is. It is a draw in Game 3 between these two. So Magnus Carlson is still in the lead with one win so far in the semi-final match. And that means, ladies and gentlemen, Timur Rajabov, he is in that must-win situation in the fourth and final game to take this to tiebreaks. Magnus Carlsen will have the white pieces, and he only needs a draw to be in the final. So, wow. What a situation for Timur Rajabov, but he made it yesterday.
He did it, but he did it with the white pieces, so we'll see what's going to happen.
Yeah. All right. Well, it was an interesting game. Timur Rajabov did have big chances, and David will now give us the analysis of this game, and this one is the learning point given to you by Lisoveta.
This is actually the moment when Rajabov let the win slip. White has fantastic winning chances if he just plays slowly, takes a few calm moves. For example, he could just wait with his pawn on this side. Black, here, Magnus Carlson, doesn't have a clear plan to force the draw. No matter what Black does, he has problems to deal with. He always has to worry about White's rook going for the black pawns at the right moment. Instead, Timur Rajabov hastily rushed with a check, allowing Black's king back towards that left side of the board, towards the side it actually wants to go to. This move helped Magnus Carlsen, and we saw here Black bringing his rook in front of White's pawn. Now, if White had given a check attacking the Black king would have simply stepped forward, and after the pawn drops, Black's king continues its march towards the left side. This would actually guarantee a draw, because no matter what happens on the next move, Black will just win White's pawn, and 2 versus 1 on the same side is not enough to win. You cannot create a passed pawn and continue your winning chances. Magnus spotting this drawing resource and saving the game.
Fourth and final game in the semi-finals between Magnus Carlsen and Timur Rajabov. The world champion with a draw or a win will be in the final. Rajabov, he has to win to take it to tiebreaks. We're now going to show you the next episode in Simon Williams' series on chess engines, and so far it's been kind of depressing, and the computers just always beating the human beings. It's not going good for the human species. But finally, today, we will show you a little bit of a lighter episode. This is the last time a human being, a chess player, a grandmaster, was able to beat a computer.
Hi viewers, hope you're all doing all right, and welcome to the FTX Crypto Cup. And I'm continuing my analysis of computer chess through the years. And it seemed, if you spotted the last video, if you were there, hope you were, don't want to miss any of the action, that humanity's fight against computers was over around the time where Garry Kasparov lost to Deep Blue, the IBM computer. And everyone had written off humans, but funny things occurred, and in the 2005 chess festival in Spain we had Ruslan Ponomariov, very strong player, being a world champion, FIDE world champion, playing against one of the strongest computers, Fritz, and no one expected the human to get a result. Deep Fritz, very, very good program, but the unthinkable occurred. The computer blundered. Now, blundering is a very human thing to do, very human emotion, a very human in life, not just in chess. And this is why this struggle against computers does reflect itself in humanity and what's going out away from the chessboard as well. And I like that about humans. Flawedness, to me, imperfection, I think is a sign of beauty a lot of the time. But computers just don't blunder, and this was the last time really that a human was able to beat a strong computer. After this, things just went downhill for humans. And let's just see what happened. Well, Queen G3 was played by Ruslan, and black is doing very well here, but Bishop C2 was a major blunder, and this allowed Ruslan to, can you see the move? Remember, you can have a little think. Take on H4, get the queens off, go Rook C1, and this is the key move. The pin on the on the C file is fatal. Now, after Rook takes B3, Knight takes, Bishop takes, maybe the computer has seen up to this point where it looks like the two pieces, the Knight and the Bishop, are better than the Rook, but the human Ruslan, to his credit, had seen that little bit further. Pawn to A5, and here the computer suddenly realized that B5 is coming and this pawn is marching down the board. For example, Knight C4, B5, and this pawn is just going to be too strong. For example, it's a runner. So a nice little moment, 2005, maybe the last time really where a human was able to fight at a similar level to a computer. After 2005, computers were just far too strong. They just got stronger and stronger and are getting stronger and stronger. If you want to see the other videos on this course, history, chess history, even computers, go over to chessable.com, the place for all your chess needs, and check out this course. It is free there, and there's loads of other cool stuff as well.
It's all gone down from there. 2005, the last time a human being was able to beat a computer assignment. So, computers officially, I guess, then has taken over the world.
Yeah, I think so. I saw you introduce that and say, oh, this is a bit of positive news for humanity, but it was actually the last time that a human, as you mentioned, did beat a computer. It was all downhill after that, and computers have basically taken over. But if we can't beat them, we got to learn to live with them, I guess, and that's what the professionals do nowadays.
Yeah, use them. And I just noticed, like, the names. So we had Deep Blue, we had Deep Thought. Yesterday we had Deep Fritz against Krumnik, and here only Fritz. What is up what is up with these names?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose if anyone out there is a kid on the way, as long as they call it like Deep Ginger or Deep, I know, Deep David or Deep Yavanka, they're going to be onto a winner, right?
Yeah,
so,
right.
There's a little tip there, I think. So, yeah.
It's like those Sith Lords, Darth Vader, Darth Sidious.
Yeah, right. Deep. Yeah. I like that one. Deep Ginger GM. Maybe you should start a computer company, Chess Engine, Simon.
Yeah, it might be a bit more wild and maybe defeatable compared to some of the ones on the market, but yeah, not a bad idea. So.
All right. Well, Simon, of course, I bet the players are using the computers today, checking openings and stuff like that. I mean, Timur Rajabov definitely will be doing that now, trying to expect what Magnus comes with the white pieces in the last one. What do you think of this last game when it's must win for Timur with black pieces?
I mean, it's going to be very tough. I can't honestly remember the last time that Magnus in this position, so a position where he only needs to get a draw with the advantage of the white pieces, which is, I suppose, like having the serve in tennis, has gone on to lose. So, you know, I feel that Timur's chance was in that last game, in the ending, which you brilliantly went through a couple of moments ago. It's also a bit depressing when you've just thrown away a win and you've got to go back and try all over again. I mean, how many times can you do that? So Magnus, big favourite, but of course, anything can happen. And Timur's been extremely impressive throughout all the tours.
Yeah.
Simon, the other finalist who has been confirmed now, Wesley So, what do you make of his play so far? Undefeated in the tournament.
Yeah, he's pretty decent, I guess. No, he's really good. I mean, he's the guy who's probably over all the tours, not just this individual one, has impressed me the most. I mean, we got to remind ourselves that he's won, I think, 2 of them. And didn't he beat Magnus Carlson in the head-to-head match in both of those tours?
Yep.
So anyone who can beat Magnus in two head-to-heads is pretty impressive. And how humble was he earlier when I think you asked him, are you favourite against Magnus because you beat him 2 times before? And he simply answered, no one is favourite against Magnus. And it just seems like a very humble and nice top grandmaster.
Yeah, well, if Magnus makes this, he's definitely going to hope for that 3-time lucky. I mean, Simon, who would you put as a favorite if it is Magnus versus So in the final?
It's really tough to call. I mean, I don't really ever want to bet against Magnus being the world champion, but I'd have to look at the odds. I mean, if it was just even bet, I'd probably go for Magnus because he's got to win one against Wesley at some point. If he loses the third one in a row, that's kind of unheard of for a world champion. So I'm going to say Magnus, but I'm not so confident.
Yeah, I can hear that.
So, yeah.
Well, Wesley, actually, he also had a very funny answer when we asked him about the quiz of the day. Which chess player would he take to the moon? And he said he would take Magnus and just leave him there. And we asked David the same question. He wanted to take you, Simon, to the moon. Just have a good time.
I feel the love has been one way so far. I'm giving some back now.
Lovely. That sounds like a Frank Sinatra song, doesn't it? To the moon.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
Yes.
Anyway, that'd be lovely, David. Yeah. I'd look forward to that. Thank you.
But of course, we want to ask you right back then, Simon. I mean, if you could take any player, any chess player to the moon, who would you take?
Well, apart from David, who I have to say now, but of course it'd be lovely to take David. I don't know. I mean, I don't really like flying, so I need someone to, maybe keep my attention and tell me some good stories. So I'm thinking maybe Yasser Seirawan, who's a famous grandmaster from America. He's got loads of great stories. He's done a couple of courses for Chessable, and when I've commentated him before, he just comes up with story upon story. So someone just to tell me lots of stories so I can sort of sleep on the way up there could be a good call, I think. So maybe Yasser. I think. And David, of course.
Yeah.
And Jovanka as well.
Thank you.
So everyone.
Kaya?
Well, I'm not a chess player. That's the problem.
Yeah. That's otherwise, of course. Yeah. Well, you are a chess player, aren't you? You are.
Okay, thank you, Simon. Yeah, I'll pretend.
Okay.
That would be fun. That would be fun. Going to the moon with you guys. I think that would be a lot of fun. And Simon, so it's coming up very close, the next game with Magnus and Timur Rajabov. So thanks for joining us today, and we're looking forward to see you in the big final.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
Yeah.
Looking forward to tomorrow. We'll have to wait and see who it is, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Simon. Thanks for joining us.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Yes, everyone dreaming of going to the moon now, and I hope the viewers are as well, Jovanka.
Yeah, that is our quiz of the day where we're asking which player would you take to the moon? And of course, everyone is not disappointing us with their answers. Here are a few that we really liked. CJ says that it would have to be David Howell. I'm pretty sure he's already been to space. You're not going to live this one down, David.
That's the wrong Teletubby, though.
It totally is. That one's Poe. David likes Tinky Winky.
Yeah.
And also, Gabrielle Coelho says that they would take their favourite would-be grandmaster. Actually, I'm sure that in his lifetime, moon travels will be a thing. Yeah. And Escobar says that they would love to take Jan Nepomniachtchi to the moon because no mosquitoes will disturb him.
He'll happily join.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you want to enter our quiz of the day, then you can tweet your answer using 3 hashtags. They are Chess Champs, Opera and FTX Crypto Cup, because what you have in store is amazing prize.
Yeah. And another thing that is amazing is cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin. This is the FTX Crypto Cup. So we have teamed up with crypto, and it is also a major $220,000 in the prize fund. And in addition to that, $100,000 worth of Bitcoin. We started out last Monday, and we're going to follow the rate all the way up until the final day in 2 days on Monday. But it's falling. I mean, it's had some few good days, but $75,000 now. So the players won't be happy to take a look at this, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, but the great news is that with the Bitcoin currency is that, of course, it will fluctuate. And if they choose to hold on to the Bitcoin afterwards, it could go up.
All right. Well, maybe Timo Rajabov and Magnus Carlsen are taking a look at this. Maybe Timo Rajabov is taking a look at it just to remind himself of all the fun that is in it if he wins this game and takes it to tie breaks and then maybe heads into the final. The winner of the FTX Crypto Cup, being a major, will qualify directly for the tour final. Actually, Timo Rajabov, he already won a major. He's already qualified. But Magnus Carlsen, he could need that win. And he is up by 1 point in the second semi-final match against Timo Rajabov. So with a draw or a win in the next one, Magnus Carlsen will be in the final against Wesley So. With the white pieces, David, what do you expect?
I expect Magnus to play super solid.
Yeah.
As Simon mentioned, when Magnus wants to draw with white, he nearly always gets it. We've seen that actually before in World Championship matches. I remember seeing him play Vachier-Lagrave. He only needed to draw with the white pieces. He tried to suck all of the life out of the game, and he was successful. Magnus, if Rajabov takes too many risks against him, he will know when to punish it as well. So Magnus, super solid. Rajabov needs to just keep all the pieces on the board if he can.
Yeah.
Not his usual strategy, but he needs to try something different.
Yeah, maybe find some inspiration. I know he had the white pieces in the last game yesterday, but there must be something he can take out of that final must-win game yesterday.
Yeah,
as inspiration, at least.
Certainly, and he can also look backwards to the match that Magnus Carlsen played against Hikaru, where there was a lot of points exchanged there. So there have been some weaknesses shown by Magnus. I mean, perhaps Magnus has a tendency towards direct play, but Magnus playing with the white pieces, only needing a draw. There are some problems there, because what I have noticed about Magnus is that he has a very wide repertoire. He can choose which way he's going to serve, and he tends to be very effective. Oh, we're going to see an Owens defense.
Yeah, so that is very rare with black. You can tell Rajabov doesn't believe in his chances in an open game, in a Sicilian, in a Kingspawn opening. He, as black now, he's about to set up with the hippopotamus defense.
Wow, this looks strange.
Likely. Yeah, black, he's just going to camp out on his first 3 rows, keeping all the pieces on the board, as we predicted. No opening theory here. A draw is the same as a loss for Rajabov, so it's all out for the win. This is an opening I employ a lot in blitz or bullet chess online, because there's no clear plan for the opponent. And that's why we see Magnus already thinking it's only move 5. He does castle the white king. Rajabov bringing his knight to the centre now. There's no direct confrontation. No, white will control the first 4 ranks. Black will hide out on his first 3 ranks. Black slightly cramped, but super flexible.
I have to say, we've seen many grandmasters try this particular opening with the black pieces, and I have to say the track record in this event is actually quite poor. White tends to get an overwhelming position, so I'm a little bit worried actually for Rajabov. And I also have to bear in mind that didn't Magnus play something very similar with the black pieces?
Magnus has played everything, Ivanka, in his lifetime. He loves to experiment with new openings, and there we see Rajabov bringing his knight out. So it's not a pure hippopotamus defence where black would actually have put his knight next to the other knight. That's maybe the most common setup in this type of situation. Black's knight coming out to a slightly more active square here, controlling a bit more of the centre. But yeah, you say you're worried for Rajabov's chances. I love it. It means we're going to get a completely new type of game to anything we've seen before on the tour, especially between these two guys. All the pieces on the board for a long time. I just love it when players, they do something that they don't usually play. And it takes both players actually out of their comfort zone. Magnus reacting quite quickly to the surprise, but at least he can't rely purely on pattern recognition, on his opening research, all that stuff. That's what white wants to do, usually. And
I'm just afraid, David. I mean, I just think that Magnus is a natural, what I have a word for this, I call them space monsters. So space monsters are people who just like to occupy the centre and just steamroller forward with their pawns. And Magnus loves this type of chess, and I just don't think an opening like this is going to disturb him that much.
Magnus loves this type of chess, but I completely disagree. I think that anything else Rajabov would have tried, if he played any opening he's played in the past, I think Magnus would easily have neutralised that. So, yes, it might go wrong. Yes, Rajabov might lose, but I think this was his best bet, I think.
OK. Well,
why not try something?
We have some disagreement. Let's see it on the board. I mean, I'm dying to see what's going to happen. And when Rajabov will strike, or what Magnus will do.
OK, so Rajabov there just developing his bishop, getting ready to castle the black king, potentially. Yeah, I would have loved to see the pure hippopotamus defense with black putting both bishops, calling fianchettos, both bishops on the longest possible diagonals. I think that would have been maybe one way to unsettle Magnus, but Rajabov, he's just playing a different setup. And now white, look how Magnus loves to rely on his pattern recognition. This knight maneuver for white, retreating the knight, later bringing the knight out to a more active square, that comes up in the Italian game, in the Spanish opening. Magnus borrowing ideas from other openings to use here. And that's one good tip for everyone, I think. Everyone at home, I use this myself. Sometimes we are met with an opening we've never seen before. We can't study everything. Chess is too infinite. Chess is too vast. So if we're met with a kind of new situation, just look for similarities with other openings. Here, white has a free hand to develop however he wants. Magnus borrowing ideas from another opening he knows extremely well, another opening he's an expert in, and he's using that maneuver here, and it's going to be quite effective.
Yeah.
Black castling, I expect to see Magnus very quickly bring his knight out to that square, the two white knights keeping the white king nice and safe. Perfect formation.
Yeah, no, it's a beautiful, actually, maneuver from Magnus Carlson, because he's actually anticipating if black tries to stake out a claim in the centre by advancing the king's pawn, then that white knight is getting ready to jump forward to the f5 square, and that is where it wants to be. And so then he's also anticipated what's going to happen if black picks up the pawn next to the knight, the c pawn, and pushes it 2 squares forward. And he's like, well, if that's going to happen, I'm simply going to push my pawn and meet that. So he's really cleverly saying to Rajabov, how are you going to play with your lack of space?
Yeah, and actually, I just trawling through my memory banks, I do remember just randomly tuning in to Chess24 Twitch. And Chess24, they put on these great Banter Blitz sessions. I remember Rajabov playing a Banter Blitz game against a very strong player, and he used this setup as black. So not the full hedgehog, but this exact setup as black, pushing the central pawn. So Rajabov, he has experience here, and now the position is kind of transposed into more of a Philidor defence. So black, very solid for now. Still slightly passive, slightly misplaced pieces for black, getting in the way of each other. But I've seen Rajabov have some small success with this setup. Let's see what Magnus comes up with next. The reason I like it is just that there's no trades, there's no exchanges, there's maximum tension. Rajabov would never choose this in a classical game, in a long game where Magnus has 2 hours to try and beat him, but in a rapid game, I think it's a great practical try.
Okay.
At least. From experience, I think even top grandmasters, they don't like this type of tension when they only need a draw.
Yeah.
And there we go, Magnus just developing his bishop.
But I have to say, I really do admire Magnus's setup. I think it's so clever because black is playing all about, provocation. He wants to provoke white to go forward, and instead Magnus has just optimized his piece development so that the standoff still continues in the center. He's like, I'm not going to push a pawn forward. I'm going to keep on asking you, what are you going to do? And finally, a pawn does actually push forward. But if you notice, there's nothing to disturb the central tension. He's just expanding slowly on the wings. And again, asking the question to Rajabov, how are you going to connect the rooks? How are you going to complete development? What is your plan?
Yeah, what is black's plan indeed? And that's why Rajabov has started to think on this turn. I wouldn't be surprised to see him maybe push a pawn in front of the black king, just create a square for black's dark square bishop to come out to.
Yeah, there we have it. And that's a nice move. And whenever I see that move on the board, I always think of you, David, because I think that pawn is
Rajabov instead next time.
No, but I've noticed that you really like to use your pawns to control the squares available to a knight. And it's such a nice strategical concept.
Yeah, so white's knight, we've mentioned this in the past, but white's knight wants to get to f5 where it will thrive, but it has not been granted access to that square. Black's pawn covering the very important f5 launch pad. And now the onus is back on Carlsen, how to improve his pieces. The only reason I liked Rajabov's opening choice earlier, but maybe the last few moves, I don't like Rajabov's decisions so much, and that's because the play has transposed in towards a different type of opening. It's more of a king's pawn opening now, and openings, they often transpose to each other. You can play lots of different moves, you can play them in different orders, though. And with Rajabov's opening setup, he hasn't been able to confuse Magnus Carlsen yet. Magnus has gone back to patterns he knows very well, and And yeah, no way to disturb that yet. With white's last move, he has lined up his queen. The queen's on a bit of an odd square, but he has lined it up with his dark squared bishop. So there are potential ideas of jumping with white's bishop later on. Actually, maybe if we bring up the analysis board while Rajabov thinks, just to explain this slightly mysterious move by Magnus Carlson, bringing his queen to this square. Looks like a passive square, but OK, black has developed his bishop now, and I would expect to see Magnus Carlson jump forward with his own bishop. If not now, then over the next few turns. Black's bishop here, the fianchetto bishop, is on its longest possible diagonal, so it makes sense to trade it off. Also, it's the best defender of the black king. So if you trade off this piece, now we see white's queen, white went to that square, defending white's bishop. If these bishops get traded, for example, if black makes a move, then suddenly we will see black's king may be vulnerable. The knights might jump in and sacrifice themselves to explode open black's king side. Maybe the white queen later will jump forward towards black's king. I think it definitely makes sense to trade off those bishops right now with this move.
Yeah. All right. Well, you said it, Jovanka. For Team Rajabov in this game, it would be all about not trading those pieces, keeping the tension. And after 15 moves, still all pieces on the board.
All pieces are on the board. I mean, the reason I'm not a big fan of Timur's position is just because I feel like his pieces are just lacking the space. Yes, he's kept all of them on the board, not one single trade. But, you know, it's very, very difficult for him to maneuver and to create some active point of attack.
So now for him as well, it would be good to get some pieces off the board to create space simply.
It has to be the right ones, but yeah, I guess black can't just sit forever. Sit and maneuver, and yeah, black's pieces, they're much less active than white's. White has 3 pieces at least on his third rank. Black only has 1 piece on his third rank or beyond.
Is this Magnus's dream position? You always say that he loves to activate his pieces, get all the pieces into the action.
He's not complaining, let's just say that. He's definitely not complaining, Magnus Carlson. And yeah, Rajabov, he's just guided the game towards more classical types of positions. I think he should have just kept his mentality of just trying to play kind of funky chess, weird chess, just to kind of curl up and wait for Magnus to kind of start pushing forward. But right now, Magnus in his comfort zone, back in types of scenarios that he knows, and spending a bit of time, I expect. OK, he pushes a pawn first, so slightly strange to move the queen across and then not fulfill that idea by bringing the bishop out to that right side, but maybe he's saving that up for later. We do see white trying to trade a set of pawns, black blocking up that left side. Black couldn't afford to allow white's rook in the corner to open itself up, so it makes sense to block it off.
Do you know, I have noticed a little bit of a trend. When Magnus beats Timur Rajabov, it's because he's expanded with his pawns as much as he possibly can on the left side of the board. I mean, it happened in this game, the early game in the preliminaries. It was like all about expansion, and certainly was also the situation when Magnus had that very critical win in one of the earlier tour events, I think in the New in Chess Classic.
Yeah, with pawns.
It's just pawns coming forward, so good memories.
Yeah, good memories, but he needs to continue pushing forward. Black staking out his claim for space. It might have started with something we call the Owens defense, with black starting with his B pawn on the first move, but it's transposed pretty much directly to the Spanish opening. I mean, almost. I could actually find a transposition, I think, quite easily from from a king's pawn opening from the Spanish into this position. The Breyer defense is almost identical, so openings, they all transpose.
All right, well, Magnus again spending some time to think here. He only needs a draw in this game. What is he going for? Can we say that already?
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't really want to take any risks, but it's hard to play risk-free chess in this type of scenario. You can't just wait forever while all the pieces are on the board, because then your opponent gets to fulfill all his plans.
So why doesn't he start to trade off pieces if that's...
Good question. I think he should.
Okay.
I think he should, Kaya. I would go for that bishop trade now, most likely. The bishop trade we mentioned a couple of turns ago.
I really like that bishop trade, and it's just designed to soften up the dark squares around the black king. I mean, because it does look at first sight a little bit anti-positional. You know, you're like, well, what's the black bishop doing there? You know, it's just passive, it's stuck behind a pawn, but it's such an important piece with so much potential that once you get rid of it, then black will start to have a little bit of problems with the safety of the king.
Yeah. So black has two things to worry about right now. Firstly, as Ivanka mentioned, potentially the safety of the Black King. If that bishop does get traded off, if it disappears. The second thing Black has to worry about is taking some action. How do you open up the centre? You don't really want to trade some pawns in the centre right now because that gives White more grip. So Rajabov, he needs to find a way to fight for space, fight for some activity, and not compromising his position in the meantime. That's why he's thinking. I would expect, actually, if we bring up the analysis board, just... OK, he brings his bishop back. Wow, that is... It doesn't trade pieces. That is good. But it does mean that this bishop is internally bad. And there's always going to be tricks later on. Not right now, but later on. For example, White could jump forward with the knight, giving up a knight just to open up lines towards the Black King. So this type of thing would lead to checkmate. This is what Rajabov has to worry about now that his bishop is so bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, definitely. That is a very thematic knight jump. And but it does fit in with his strategy of not exchanging any pieces. I mean, I do think that this is perhaps the best practical shot, even though it's rather ugly. But OK, White needs a plan here. And what I would be thinking about doing is I would simply carry on with Magnus's idea of just not committing anything to the position. So I would be tempted to advance one pawn forward on the right side of the board. Yep. It's on the board. Oh, David's played it for me. Yep. Thank you.
Because Black has the idea of jumping forward with the knight. For example, if White just moves a piece, Black has the idea of jumping forward and dislodging this White bishop. So you might as well control that square.
Yeah, exactly. And also it's a nice luxury move where the king will have a hiding hole for... Oh, but we have a move. And the move is a little bit unexpected because I fully expected this waiting game to continue until one side cracked. And now Magnus has just simply advanced a pawn in the centre, committing the pawn structure. And now the tension will dissipate from the centre to the sides of the board. And
yeah, Kaya, you love your pawn chains. Look at this for White. Look at this. Look at this for Black. Very strong pawn formations here. I think Black has to play very quickly for this pawn break. If Black sits and does nothing, he's just too cramped. No active plans. He has to play with this pawn break. If not now, then on the next move. You can play it immediately, but maybe you want to insert this move, bring the rook first to this square, actually lining up indirectly against the White Queen. And if White takes a timeout now, you have to break before it's too late. And if things open up, maybe then you would get chances against some of White's pawns. And also then, once you've removed the head of White's pawn chain, you can break forward yourself in the centre with Black. So the current position, I expect to see either this move for Black breaking out immediately, or you prepare it first by bringing the rook to the side.
Yeah, absolutely. That needs to be played. Otherwise, Black is in danger of just getting squashed. You have to plan out your breakout eventually. And yeah, so whilst we're waiting for Timur to hatch up a plan of action, well, we should remind everyone we have a quiz of the day where we're asking which player should you take to the moon. And there you can see there is an amazing prize at stake. And we have a few answers. Blunder Master says that they would take Vishwanathan Anand because the Indian Space Research Organisation would spend their whole budget to keep us safe.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I agree. Isaiah Elias says that he would take, myself and Magnus Carlson. Ooh. I'm smooth and he's a genius. I totally agree.
Yeah, that would be a fun ride.
It's definitely going to be fun. I look forward to it if it ever happens. And Abel says that they would take David because we could pass the time by analysing all of Magnus's chess games.
Too late. I've already analysed all of them.
Yeah.
Repetition, David. We know that's very good for chess players.
True.
Definitely. Yep. Absolutely. And we do have a move from Rajabov.
Computer doesn't like it.
Yeah, I'm surprised he's pushed his pawn so early. And also, I'm surprised he's pushed his pawn 2 squares. I expected that pawn to step forward 1 square to undermine White's central pawn. But with this pawn pushing it 2 squares, I don't really see what Black's threat is. There's no immediate idea. You're not opening up the centre, which you need to do at some point for Black. Yeah, very strange by Timur Rajabov. I think that's a strategic mistake, simply.
Mm-hmm. So would you be tempted to capture the pawn? That is the immediate consequence of that pawn
It does feel like someone has to start those trades soon, yeah.
Eventually, yes.
I mean, move 18, 32 pieces on the board.
Yeah, and they will continue being cramped, feeling a bit bunched up if that continues. And personally, I wouldn't even touch that pawn. It's slightly tempting to take that, but I would play maybe your move from earlier, Jovanka, just step a pawn forward on the right side. I don't think black has any real threats on that left side of the board right now. So, okay. Magnus, what will he come up with? He does have this tendency to be direct, as you mentioned, and it's very natural to simplify. Let's bring up the analysis board, actually, just to show what might happen right now. Okay, he follows my idea. He just pushes this pawn forward 1 square. Jovanka, I think you wanted to capture this pawn en passant because it has just moved twice on its first go. And we do know that if you have a pawn on your 5th rank, if your opponent moves 2 pawns to try and bypass it, you can actually capture as if it just moved once. And this would have been fine as well. Maybe white could push forward on the left. But Magnus, he switched the play to the other side. Look at this pawn structure, Kaya. Whoops, in the current position, if we catch up with the game, then now black has pushed his pawn forward on the left. This is completely blocked. I mean, I'm trying to find an analogy for this one, but this is completely blocked on this side. The centre also completely blocked. And players all going to be about this right side of the board now, who can manoeuvre better on this side. Black retreating his knight. The queen stepping forward. It's just completely blocked right now. All pieces still on the board. Black starting to switch his pieces. Note how he's starting to switch his pieces towards the right side now. Later on, white's knight stepping back. Later on, black will move this knight. He's training the bishops first. He's going to move this knight later, for example, if the rook moves. And later on, it needs a lot of preparation, but he's going to try and break with this one eventually. I expect to see 20 moves of manoeuvring first.
Yeah, and the manoeuvring has begun because Magnus has just played one of those mysterious rook moves where he's moved his rook to in front of a pawn, and it looks like that rook is not going to do anything. So he's getting ready for that battle, that opening in the centre. And so he's getting ready to push this pawn 2 squares forward and just to release the rook. And before he would do that, I agree, David, I think we're going to see a lot more manoeuvring. Okay, we're going to see the trade of bishops, and the king tucks itself away in the corner. I would be tempted to carry on building. I wouldn't be tempted to do something immediate now. I would be move my rook towards the centre, get ready for the big action.
Look at Magnus's expression, though. He's surprised by that last move. He was maybe tempted to push forward. OK, he does retreat his queen. That queen retreat was about to happen anyway. Black was about to just retreat his knight next to the black king and kick that queen away. So Magnus preempts that attack on his queen, steps her back. Magnus, he's getting ready to maybe throw his F pawn up the board. So to create some tension in the centre, maybe finally open up some lines. I should say, though, 23 moves, the last turn, we did see that trade of bishops. Finally, some pieces have cleared off. They have been hoovered off the board.
Yeah, I was going to say we have to see some intelligent thinking from Rajabov, because he has to prepare for that pawn break. And the only move that I could see was actually retreating the knight. And so the point is that when white does advance with the pawn, well, after pawn takes pawn, the black knight now has a square in the centre just to hold the position together. Still looking incredibly shaky, actually.
Yeah, so the move... White goes for it immediately. I was about to say this is the move we're looking for from Magnus. If not now, then at least very soon. And he goes for it immediately. He doesn't hang around. The pawns do get traded off. Black about to install a knight in the middle.
Yeah, and now I suspect that white will just... Well, Magnus likes to use every single piece on the board, and so the rook... OK, he's not taking my advice. I was like, pick up that rook that's not working and move it on the open line. But instead...
he'll use that idea shortly.
Yes.
First, he tries to undermine the black knight in the middle of the board. That black knight in the centre, that holds everything together. If you look at all of black's other pieces, they're all on the top row, all passive, undeveloped, not doing anything. So it makes sense. Remove your opponent's best piece. Try and trade it off. I expect to see Rajabov, if it's possible, there might be some drawbacks, but he has to try and support that knight in the middle of the board. We might see a trade of knights, but black would just replace his strong knight with the other one. And now maybe it's time, like you say, to bring white's rook in the corner into the action. First, OK, I was about to say first maybe white could centralise his knight, but no, he does bring his rook into the fray. And, OK, trade of knights, black's going to install a second knight into the middle of the board, if possible.
now you have a choice, actually. I was going to say I was going to retreat my rook in order to liberate the diagonal for the queen to start looking at the black king. And I just love Magnus's play. From the opening, from his strategical approach, the way he positioned his pieces, it almost looked like, dare I say it, a refutation of Rajabov's setup, or is that too harsh?
That's way too harsh, I think.
I mean,
it was just a normal
brilliant.
position a few moves ago, though. I do think Rajabov's taken risks because he knows he's in a must-win situation.
Okay.
And I think actually White now still has to be accurate. If you move that rook back, then maybe the black queen will join the action. So I think you need to bring your rook up the board to block off that black queen. This type of structure is well known from different types of openings, still the Spanish opening, and from, for example, the King's Indian, the Benoni. Lots of different openings lead to this pawn structure. That's why Magnus is able to play so quickly and just using that pattern recognition again. Black has one fantastic piece. The black knight is amazing, but the problem is the other black pieces. There's no space. You want to trade off all the rooks, and then black's actually maybe better, but black's rooks are just not able to find lines. Black's bishop stuck on its home square. Wow, Timur Rajabov in this must-win situation brings his bishop out, sacrificing his bishop, but he has severed the connection between the two white rooks. White's rooks no longer connected. That bishop move, it's either very good or it's very bad, but Magnus, he is calling Rajabov's bluff. He sacrifices his rook for that bishop. Now with pawn takes pawn, black's queen attacked by white's remaining rook. That black queen's going to have to move away. And Magnus, despite the fact he only needs to draw, he's sacrificing. He's going on the attack now. And it does look very good for white, I must say.
It looks amazing. I mean, what you would do with that white pawn is actually you wouldn't just automatically capture the black pawn in front of the king. You would instead use your pieces, especially the queen and the knight, and involve them in the attack. It just looks so good.
Yeah, black's queen, I think the main issue is black's queen doesn't have a safe square.
Yeah.
No matter where the black queen goes, she's going to be in trouble. OK, she goes to the edge of the board, attacking white's knight. That just gives white time to jump in with his knight if he wants to. Magnus, he knows that he's built up a winning attack. He still needs to be accurate because he's material down on the board. White down a rook. White down a rook for a bishop. So white needs to be quick. But bringing that knight up
it's the most natural move.
Yeah, the more the bar thinks, the higher it goes, seeing 8 advantage for Magnus Carlson. What's happening here?
Yeah, the white knight did jump in. Knights on f5, they will thrive. And that white knight is beautiful. White's pawn as well, stepping up, checking the black king. The black king's actually trapped. You just need one killer blow to actually check it later on, to checkmate it. White's knight, meanwhile, just snacking on pawns, taking pawns.
And the white knight is actually threatening not only the black rook, but it can also jump backwards and start threatening some horrible checks. Just everything is falling apart.
Yep, so that black rook was attacked. It attacked the white knight stepping back to its dream square. There were other squares as well it could have used maybe, but white's knight protecting that white pawn, that intruder in black's position next to the black king. White actually has 2 pawns now as well for that exchange sacrifice that we mentioned earlier, for that material. White's pawn stepping forward, clearing a square for the white queen to check that black king along a light square diagonal.
It's deadly.
Black king is doomed. This is fatal.
I mean, there's just nothing to do.
Look at the black rooks. They're just paralysed. They're unable to...
Yeah, the only move that I can potentially see is this, like, move the rook that's in the corner, move it up 1 square.
And maybe white's bishop is actually going to join the action. White's bishop's going to centralise itself, then kind of zigzag and start hitting the black king. I mean, that's a very exposed light square diagonal. White's knight and bishop are going to be worth way more than both of black's rooks.
Yeah.
This is game over.
Yes, it just hasn't worked for Rajabov at all. I mean, I'm just really impressed by Magnus's play. And Rajabov does make the move that I suggested, but... I know it's very, very little.
Is it basically over? Is Magnus with 1.5 foot in the final right now?
I think,
He's almost there. He just needs to control his emotions, not get too excited, and he's nearly there. And Magnus is so ruthless when it comes to these type of positions, and he has this ability as almost superhuman just to keep himself calm.
Yeah. So white's queen did give check. Black's rook had to block. Now the bishop steps back, attacking the black queen. Is that queen trapped? It's almost trapped right now. Actually, maybe it is trapped. The black queen about to drop off the board as well. This is Magnus in top form. He's in the flow. He's finding these difficult moves quite quickly as well.
Yeah, he's just been brilliant with attacking with just pieces. And I have to say, actually, he actually did a chessable course on how to attack without sacrificing pieces. Well worth a check-out. And
Rajabov resigns with the Black Queen about to be trapped.
It's over. Magnus Carlson is the winner of the semi-final against Rajabov. He is ready for the big final in the third major in the Meltwater Champions Chess Tour, the FTX Crypto Cup. And we'll have a repetition of the final between these two. They faced each other in 2 finals so far in the tour. It's going to be a third one. And Magnus Carlson will be hoping for third time lucky because he's lost both of them to Wesley So. Wow. Can you imagine, Jovanka, another final between these two?
Yeah, I know, but what a journey we've had to get here. You know, it's been so much drama, so much action. We've seen magnificent play. And I take my hat off to Magnus. He put on a powerful performance there in that game that we just saw. Yeah. And he has a well worth spot in the final.
Yeah, David, it was a must-win situation for Timur in this last game. So he did come up with something very risky, but take us through this game that Magnus eventually won.
Yeah, very smooth performance by Magnus Carlson, very nicely controlled as well, not taking too many risks and punishing Rajabov when the time came. Rajabov had to try something new. It didn't quite work, and this was actually the moment Magnus turned it in his favour. In this position, White's rook is attacked from the Black Knight. He stepped it forward, an important move, allowing Black to actually trap this rook. But suddenly, after sacrificing the rook for just a bishop, we saw White create this deadly attack. Now, pawn takes pawn, opening up an attack against Black's queen. And as we did see, the knight jumping forward to start attacking, the pawn as well jumping forward to attack the Black king. And this led to the end. Magnus Carlson, he built up this winning attack and very coolly finished it off.
And he's ready. Magnus Carlson, ready for the final in the FTX Crypto Cup. Congratulations, Magnus.
Thank you.
So, well, today, I mean, going back to game 1, how determined were you to really put Rajabov in some, well, uncomfortable situations from the get-go?
I cannot say that I had a very aggressive mindset, but I decided at least I wanted to play something less theoretical and try and get a game. But, I mean, realistically, I think I messed something up and I was just quite a bit worse. But fortunately, I managed to solve my problems. He probably didn't choose the right way. And after that, I already felt like I had some psychological initiative. So I tried to find a way to play for a win. And yeah, finally he blundered, which was very, very satisfying because it was easy at some point in that game to be satisfied with the fact that I solved my problems and that I could make a draw, but I was always trying to keep some life, and it really paid off.
And Magnus, ending on a loss yesterday, how difficult was it to recover from that? Do you think game 1 today was the turning point in the match overall?
Oh yeah, for sure. Obviously, it wasn't ideal. What happened in the last game yesterday, but I knew that it's sort of easier, I feel, to adjust this time than it was in the preliminaries, because this time it's still sort of more in my own hands, that I just have one opponent to beat once. So it was obviously very upsetting, but nevertheless, I think I dealt with it fine, and I definitely had a decent mindset coming into today.
And well, it's been a tense tournament so far, with the preliminaries that final day, the quarterfinal against Hikaru, and now against Timur Rajabov decided today. How are you feeling about the way you're playing, Magnus?
No, as you said, yeah, it's been awfully tense. Can't say that my play is like flowing great, but I mean, I'm in the finals, and that's the most important thing. So you can always improve as you get there, but As I've said before as well, I think I need to play better to beat Wesley than I have so far. But the way the tournament has been going, like even being in the final, is obviously a massive achievement for me.
Yeah. And now, as you mentioned, Wesley So in the third final for you so far in the tour. What will you do differently to beat him this time?
Well, I did beat him in the 1/3 place match we played. I don't really know, to be honest. He's not an easy person to beat. I think he was pretty vulnerable yesterday in his match, but today seemed a lot more convincing. So he's very strong.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting final, Magnus. What will you do warming up for that final today and tomorrow?
Well, I'll probably watch the other big final that's going to be on today, and then try and be fresh and prepare.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite? Someone you will root for in the final in the Champions League tonight?
No, not particularly.
All right. We wish you a great evening, Magnus. Enjoy yourself, and congratulations again.
Thank you.
Magnus Carlson, of course, is going to watch the Champions League final in football, getting ready for the big final for himself in the Champions Chess Tour tomorrow. And he seems ready, Ivanka.
Yeah, he definitely seems ready. But, you know, tomorrow he will be facing his nemesis, Wesley So, who, of course, defeated him twice in a tour final. So definitely looking forward to see what changes Magnus will bring to this match.
Yeah, what's your expectations, David? Who's the favorite? What do you think is going to happen?
I think it's too close to call. Wesley, he likes to downplay the fact that he might be the favorite in some matches, but historically, he's definitely got the upper hand. And Magnus, maybe he's saving his best for last. He's slowly moving up the gears as the tournament's gone on. If he continues moving up the gears, I think he stands a chance. If not, Wesley must be the favourite.
And I did notice when I asked him about this sort of the ghosts of the past with Wesley winning those two other finals, he did mention, well, I did beat him in that battle for third place in the tournament. So he's focusing on the positives here.
Yeah, and that's what you have to do. And he also pointed out that he had noticed that Wesley had been vulnerable yesterday.
Yeah.
So definitely you have to zone in on your opponent's weaknesses, as well as look at your own strengths and weaknesses too.
Well, Magnus hasn't shown many weaknesses in the semi-finals against Team Rajabov. Let's take a look at the final results. Jan Nepomniachtchi, he got very unlucky yesterday. Some Mosquitoes teaming up with Wesley So, losing that final game. So he had to win today's match to take it to tie breaks. But Wesley So, he won the third game, and he is ready for his third final in the Meltwater Champions Chess Tour. Magnus Carlson and Team Rajabov, they tied the match yesterday, winning one game each. But today, Magnus Carlson has proved the best, winning 2 games, and he is through to the big final that will start tomorrow in the FTX Crypto Cup. Remember, this is a major. The winner will qualify directly for the tour final that is planned to be held live in San Francisco. I bet both of these players really want to get there. It's looking good for them on the overall table, of course, in the Champions Chess Tour. Jan Nepomniachtchi and Team Rajabov, they're going to fight it out for the third place. So definitely they're not done in the tournament either. But another final between these two, I mean, it's going to be fun.
It's definitely going to be fun. I mean, I can't wait for tomorrow. I can't wait for the action. And it's just been such a ride to get here. I mean, I couldn't have predicted it at all.
And Wesley So said it. If he could take someone to the moon, he would take Magnus Carlsen and leave him there so he doesn't have to struggle with the world champion. And I hope we have some more cool answers from the viewers.
We do. That was our quiz of the day, where we're asking which player would you take with you to the moon? And as always, we adored your answers. A lot of them were very, very funny, very cool. And before we reveal the winner of this amazing bumper prize provided by Opera, do have to make some honourable mentions. We liked Blundermaster's answer that they would take Vishwanathan Anand because the Indian Space Research Organization could spend their whole budget to keep us safe. And we also liked Manish, who said that they would love to take David and myself to the moon. They already have experience in playing chess in extremely cold conditions. That is very true.
Full picture.
We also liked Martin Marnon, who says that if I could go to the moon, I would take COVID-19 with me and leave it there. We have all had enough.
Yes, Martin, you're my hero.
Definitely. But the lucky winner of our bumper prize, you know, is just amazing. Chessable 1B3 course, Play Magnus Plus subscription and Chess24 Premium membership. Well, that goes to Axel Blake. Congratulations. He says, I will take David Howell and Magnus Carlson. I'm sure they can come up with some funny challenges with no gravity.
Probably my best chance of beating him.
Good choice there. Congratulations, Axel.
Yeah, I wonder what a chess game on the moon would look like with no gravity. Yeah. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the final of the FTX Crypto Cup will take place on the Earth. Magnus Carlson sitting in Oslo, Wesley So sitting in Minnesota. They played 2 finals against each other in the tour so far. Wesley So has won both of them. So is it third time lucky for Magnus Carlson? Well, we'll have to see tomorrow when the first day of the finals begins. We hope to see you back then. Bye.